Good morning, everybody. In accordance with Section 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property, permission to extend and alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person, and others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. The meetings are also streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you're called to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During that time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during the 5-minute allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you'll be reinstated as an attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Those participating through WebEx are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during the video appearance. A host will remove you from panelist role if you fail to respect that instruction. People attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must fill out the decision request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. Now, I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. When an application is uncontested, the agent or the applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching your 5 minutes. Any presentation or other materials you wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot, I repeat, staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then, individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we call on speakers in the hearing room and then those participating at WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has the opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. So before we hear the first item, I should ask our Deputy Secretary Treasurer if we have any confirmation of minutes from the last hearing.
For you, Mr. Chair, we have 3 sets of minutes to approve this morning. I'll read them out to you. February 15, present was Mr. Allison, Mr. Reid, and Ms. Casson.
Do I have
Look
a motion?
for a motion, please?
Do I have a motion to adopt the minutes?
Motion.
Mr. Reid, seconded. Okay, seconded. The motion is approved.
Thank you. Our second set of minutes is February 29. Present was Ms. Casson, Mr. Fazeli, and Mr. Allison.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion by Ms. Casson, seconded. Okay, seconded. And that's all in favor. Motion is approved.
Thank you. And our last set of minutes is March 7th. Present was Ms. Martin and Mr. Allison.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll move the motion to approve.
Thank you. And do I have a second? I have a seconder. All in favor? Okay, the motion passes. Are there any declarations of interest today? Okay, no declarations of interest. Okay, and I'm assuming there are no other files to be closed.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. There are no files to be closed this morning.
Okay, great. All right, let's move to our first item of the day. Number 1, 1698 Victoria Park Avenue.
Deferral, don't we? Mr. Chair, can I just check if we have a deferral in the morning, please?
I do. I see a deferral request for this item. First one.
Okay, thank you. I believe it's the first one. So we'll see if the agent is online. Mr. Chair, we're having an issue reaching the agent at this time. If you wouldn't mind, why don't we move on to the next item?
Okay. So we're going to hold item number 1. Let's move on to the second deferral request, 252 Florence Avenue. Or do
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's in the afternoon.
we want to leave that to the afternoon? Okay. So let's move on to item number 2. 8 Cameron Crescent. Give me a moment here. The purpose of the application is a proposal to add a 2-story addition, deck, and make alterations to the lot and existing detached dwelling. We've got variances for side yard setback for a covered front porch, driveway width, front door height, lot coverage, building length, FSI, east and west side yard setbacks, eave projection, building height, side exterior main wall height, front yard landscaping, front yard soft landscaping, and vehicular entrance height. On file, I have material from the applicant as well as a memorandum from transportation and a staff report from community planning. Do we have the applicant with us?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good
Members,
morning.
I'm Evangelista
And your address?
on behalf of 8 Cameron, 53 Bentworth Avenue.
Thank you. Staff, can you hear the agent? If you can just speak up a little bit for us.
Oh, sure, no problem. Just
That's
give me
better.
1 sec.
Thank you.
Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, all right.
My understanding is this is
So
a modified application?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it is. We have made changes. We worked with planning. We have made changes to the application. As a result of the changes, transportation comments I respectfully submit no longer apply because we have removed the driveway width and the elevation has been corrected. And those were the 2 points that transportation had made.
Can you just clarify the
comments-
variances for us before you go any further? Let's go
absolutely.
through the numbers just so we can take note of what's being modified here. So I see actually number 2, variance number 2.
So variance number 2, that has been removed. That is the driveway width. We now comply, and that has been removed.
Wonderful.
Okay. The next variance that we have amended is variance number 12.
Okay.
Okay. And we've amended that to 7.45. We did a further amendment. I believe the modified list that you have states 7.50. However, in further discussion with planning, we have amended it to 7.45. Variance number 13 we have increased the front yard landscaping to 46.74%.
Okay.
Variance number 14 has been removed as we now comply. Variance number 15,
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
which
it doesn't
relates,
seem to match what we have on the screen. I just want to clarify that we are noting the correct variances.
I believe variance number 12, is it your specifically concern is, I'm assuming, variance 12? Yeah, so variance 12, I believe is not 7.5, and I'll have the agent confirm, but I believe the modification is, if I heard correctly, 7.45.
you are correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and I believe, sorry, you're saying variance number 14.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can I just
Removed.
have them repeat, what is the change to variance 12?
7.45 meters,
Am I looking at landscaping?
which is consistent with the planning comments in the staff report.
We're just gonna bring up on the screen variance 12, which we have as landscaping.
Oh. Why does my public hearing notice differ?
Let's just take a minute to see if we can identify the discrepancy here.
Can I, so through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, to Simon, the modified per planning notice that I submitted,
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can only use the public notice that was mailed when we go through changes. That's the only one we should be using
Okay.
as reference. So if we
okay,
could,
so
if you can
this
put
is
back,
the one I
if you
received.
can put back up the public
All right,
notice.
do you want me to go through? That's very strange.
Okay. I think it's just a matter that perhaps the numbering of the variances, there's just inconsistency, is my understanding. So let's just pull up the public notice, just make sure that, let's work off of that, just to make sure that the modifications that are being made are not making the variances any worse. That's one concern I just want to make.
So through you, Mr. Chair, can I just ask can we just scroll to the end of the public notice? We have 14 variances. If we can confirm with the agent that you are looking at the same.
No, mine shows 15.
Can you just confirm the
I'm just
date
going
at the
to,
top?
I'm just going on AIC. Mine is dated April 1st.
Yeah. Can I have you jump in and maybe clarify?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe I'm referring to agent right now. So the variance number 12 that you mentioned, you modified to 7.5. Based on the public notice, that variance is actually variance number 11. It's
Oh,
the
can we
exterior
do-
main wall
can-
facing a side lot.
I see.
Correct. Can we do this, Mr. Chair, so we're not,
Let-
I don't want to take up anybody else's time.
No,
So
of course.
If you want to go on to the next, item, and in the meantime, I'll pull
Okay.
up the public hearing notice, or maybe perhaps staff can send it to me, because I'm not sure why I received this one.
Let's do
But
that.
that being said, and then when I come back to you, I will have the correct numbers.
Very good, very good. So let's hold item 2.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to
All
move
right.
to item number 3. 2400, 2403, 2434, 2440, and 2444 Yonge Street, as well as 35 ROSELAWN Avenue. The purpose of the application is to alter the development standards as approved by the site-specific zoning bylaw 1207-2022, including changes to the tower heights, gross floor area, and parking space lengths. The southern tower will increase from 101.2 meters to 110.1 meters, and the north tower will increase from 83.2 meters to 92.1 meters. Variances include FSI, height, and the minimum length required for up to 4 parking spaces. On file, I have materials from the applicant, comments from HPS, a memo from Engineering and Construction Services, and a letter from the local councillor. I also have a late staff report from Community Planning. Do we have the agent with us?
Mr. Chair, my name is Michael Goldberg. I'm the planning consultant for the applicant.
Okay, Mr. Goldberg, and your address.
Goldberg Group, 2098 Avenue Road, Toronto, M5M4A8.
Okay, very good. I'm going to look to my left and right and ask my colleagues whether they require a presentation for this item. No? Okay, it doesn't appear we need a presentation, but if there's anything you'd like to add before we head into committee.
I thank you very much for that, members of committee. The only additional item I would ask is Mr. Joshua Butcher, my client from First Capital, was suggesting in a letter that he sent to committee on April the 6th that should committee find favor with this, that an additional condition read as follows: the maximum permissible heights shall be constructed substantially in accordance with revised drawing 3, dated January 26, 2024, as provided to the Committee of Adjustment and attached to this decision. The reason why we are asking for this is just to, it's a bit of a belt and suspenders approach, but in the past, builders have had issues with issuance of building permits if the drawing isn't attached to your decision. So that would be a respectful request. And if you look on page 7 of my presentation, that drawing is attached on the right-hand side. But it is on file with the committee as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So if you go to page 7 of the report, that's the one. So on the right-hand side, you could see in the bottom left-hand corner, it's dated January 26, 2024. That is the request that we have attached to your decision.
Okay, and you're aware of the staff report from Community Planning?
Yes, sir. I've read both community planning, the transportation, the local counselor, the next door neighbor, and we understand that the Ratepayer Association is also happy with this application.
Okay, I also see some correspondence from Engineering Construction Services. I see no further comment in their notes. I'll have to just mention to my colleagues whether or not there's any specific condition that they may not require. Yeah, it seems like they're satisfied. Okay, if there's nothing else to discuss, we don't have any other questions. I see no other questions. We are ready to move this into committee. Yes, yeah, and I do note the late staff report from Community Planning. Yeah, any discussion, comment, motion? Mr. Reed.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to bring a motion. I think that the changes proposed are minor, and I think in keeping with the spirit of the approved application, particularly because community planning has put a meaningful set of conditions on this. So I move approval of the application subject to community planning conditions. And transportation.
And transportation, okay. Yeah.
Oh, pardon me, yeah.
The
and,
applicant's request as well, do we want to attach?
Yeah, I think that makes sense for, just for security's sake. So substantially in accordance with drawing 3 as per the applicant's request.
Okay, sounds like we've got a full motion. Do I have a second or? Okay, thank you. Second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the committee.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Let's move on to item 4, 24 Danville Drive. The purpose of the application is a proposal to construct a new dwelling with an integral garage and a finished basement. We've got some variances for east and west side yard setbacks, as well as lot coverage. We have the applicant with us.
Yes, I'm Shen Shu.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm Shen Shu Zhang, architect, representing the owner.
And your address?
98 Scottsdale Road, North York.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to look to my colleagues and ask if they require a presentation for this item. No, it doesn't appear we require a presentation. If there's anything you'd like to add at this time before we head into committee?
Mr. Chair, there is a registered speaker.
Okay. Yes, thank you for noting that.
Perhaps a small presentation might be warranted.
Yeah, I think so. Let's hear it. Let's hear a brief presentation.
For me? Yeah. The
Yes,
three,
yes, please.
Minor variances are very minor. The first one is the side yard setback to the east side. The required setback is 1.8 meters. The proposed 1.67 meters. And the second variance is setback of the west side yard. The required setback is 1.8 meters. We proposed 1.52 meters, but that is only for the front part, the garage part only. The rest of the west yard setback is 2.44 meters. And I think that is also very minor. And the third one is coverage. The permitted coverage, lot coverage is 35%. We proposed 36.1% of the lot coverage. And yeah, that's all about the minor variance we proposed.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, no questions. We have another speaker. Good morning.
Mr. Chair, we have unmuted a Lai Pan.
Hello? Are you with us?
Is that me? I'm Lei Pan.
We can hear you, yes.
Yeah, I'm just here. Oh, okay. I'm just view this presentation. I have nothing to speak.
Okay, okay, thank you. Thank you for listening in. Okay, if there's no other speakers, we'll go back to the applicant.
Oh, hi. I don't have anything to say now till you have any questions for me.
Okay, it doesn't appear we have any questions. Okay, let's head into committee.
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to move a motion for approval. I think that the application, the requested variances are minor in nature, and they're within the intent of the zoning bylaw. And the official plan, there's no forestry conditions, so my motion stands.
Okay, motion by Ms. Casson. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I second that.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Fazeli. All in favor? Okay, the motion passes. The application is approved.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Okay, I'm going to head over to item number 5, and then we'll head back to the item that was held earlier, just to give the applicant a little bit more time. Heading over to item number 5, 168 Shepherd Avenue West. This is an application for a proposed addition and interior alteration to an existing 2-story building, with a proposed veterinary clinic on the ground floor and an owner-occupied dwelling unit on the 2nd floor. The requested variance is regarding use for a veterinary clinic in this particular zone. On file, I have materials from the applicant as well as a staff report from community planning. And do we have the applicant with us?
Morning, committee members. This is Gregory Kimmins, applicant.
And your address, Mr. Kimmins?
377 Oriel Avenue, Toronto, Ontario, M6B 1K2.
Okay. I'm assuming that you have seen the report from community planning recommending refusal of the application?
Yeah, I have seen.
Okay. Perhaps you could provide a brief presentation for us? And specifically, if you could speak to some of the comments that were noted in the staff report?
Yeah, I have one thing. I would like to make sure that the veterinary use for the property, basically zoning bylaw 6725 says that veterinary clinic means professional office as the definition of veterinary clinic. The zoning bylaw also veterinary clinic operated by licensed under the Veterinary Act. What if we don't have a boarding kennel in the clinic, only providing medical care to animals? I just want to know if it's possible.
Are you asking a question?
Yeah,
Can you repeat the question for us?
yeah. What if we don't have, we remove the boarding kennel in the clinic, proposed clinic, and only providing medical care to animals?
Right, so my understanding is you disagree with the comments in the staff report?
Just one thing, and then the second floor, for the second floor, I will change the second story from residential use to the permitted other use.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I just want to know the veterinary clinic don't have any boarding kennel. But in this case, we can approve the zoning bylaw.
Right. So what, if I understand correctly, you're putting forth that because it's not being used as a kennel, that's for overnight boarding, that you think that it will not impact, the use will not impact the particular allowable zoning.
Yes.
Okay, very good. We may have some questions for you.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions at this time? I do see another speaker. We can come back to the applicant. Yeah, so do you want to?
Just to clarify that you're not having any overnight boarding of your pets, of the animals.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I believe we have another speaker. Thank you. Mr. Neil Smiley.
Mr. Chair, we have unmuted Mr. Neil Smiley.
Mr. Smiley, are you with us?
Mr. Smiley has been continued to be unmuted. If Mr. Smiley can not mute himself and let us do that.
Mr. Smiley, I believe you're muted. If you can unmute your... Oh, no. We will unmute for you. You're unmuted now. He was the first. He's the agent. Mr. Cummins was the first speaker, right? I know.
Okay, Mr. Smiley, do you want to try speaking?
I will try. Can you hear me, sir?
We can hear you.
Wonderful.
Could you just
You
state
don't get,
your address for us?
reverberation. You can only hear me once?
Yes, we can.
Oh, wonderful.
Can you state your
so what I'll
address
do-
for us?
Would you mind if I just continue? It's hard to hear you, but if you can hear me, I'll do the deputation.
Neil, you need to state your name and address, please.
Yes, it's my name's Neil Smiley of Faskin Law Firm, and I'm here on behalf of the owner of the immediate property to the east, and I'm at 333 Bay Street. The property immediately to the east is 164 Shepherd Avenue Shepherd Avenue West, and the owner is 1552332. That's 1552332 Ontario, Inc.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
You can start your presentation now.
Thank you so much for everyone's indulgence. Members of the committee, you have in your file the planning staff report dated April 2nd, 2024, recommending refusal of the application. Given the use of veterinary clinic, the applicant is requesting to permit by variance is not a permitted use under the C6 commercial zoning. Staff indicate that if the applicant would need to proceed or that the applicant should be proceeding by way of rezoning. I do agree with planning staff's recommendation, and it's not a question of whether there's boarding or not. There's care to animals, and that is the use that's not specifically permitted under the zoning bylaw. One of the four tests under the Planning Act is that the requested variance must be within the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Here, where the bylaw doesn't even permit a veterinary use or a veterinary clinic use, it cannot simply be added by way of a variance. It needs to be tested by the wholesome tests provided by the rezoning process. That process will allow for the review, a deeper analysis of the intensification that the veterinary clinic use would provide. It would look at traffic, site circulation issues, as well as the sufficiency of the parking being provided and the availability of barrier-free access, for example, which doesn't appear evident on the plans. It's my submission, members, respectfully, that the veterinary clinic use would be incompatible with the professional offices you see on Shepherd Avenue and the adjacent homes to the rear. It would create more traffic, likely insufficient amount of parking, and thereby queuing of cars onto Shepherd Avenue West. For these reasons, the proposed variance on its four corners for the veterinary clinic use is not minor nor desirable for the appropriate use and development of the property. And I agree with planning staff. In addition to the application, in my respectful opinion, failing for not being minor in accordance with Section 45, there's an entirely second problem, equally as serious, with the application. And it's become evident that the second floor residential use that you see on the site plan before the committee is not, in fact, a permitted use and was not shown as being permitted, or was not shown as not being permitted in the zoning notice. Under the bylaw, you can only have a permitted residential use in these commercial C6 properties if that use existed in May of 1991. May 15th is the date that's actually in the site in the bylaw. I've researched the matter and I've concluded that no part of this property was used as a residence on or about May 15, 1991. Moreover, the prior owners of the property, including a Mr. Arnold Perel, who confirmed to me, and which is included in an email that I've sent to the committee, and I apologize, it was only late yesterday, that there was never a residential use at that property at the relevant time. That's May 15th, 1991. And he and his partners owned and occupied that property for office purposes. There were accountants between October of 1986 and October of 1997. That witching hour, or the date of May 15, 1991, falls clearly in there. And Mr. Perel confirmed to me that at no time during that period of ownership was there a residential use of the property. Point blank. So in addition to the variance before you, that shouldn't be by way of variance, it should be by way of rezoning. The PPR or zoning review did not identify the legality of the second floor, which clearly is not evident to everyone, but my review has indicated that that use isn't permitted as well. So in conclusion, my respectful submission that the requested veterinary clinic, whether they have boarding or not, it's more of a hospital use. It's bringing, patient animals in for review and surgeries and the whatnot. That use is not permitted in the bylaw. It can't be authorized by variance, and accordingly, to my submission, it's not minor. And we agree with city staff in this regard that the variance should be tested by the more wholesome rezoning process. It would be members of the committee at that process where the applicant could test whether he could reinsert a residential use into that property that's not permitted by way of a mixed-use zoning. Respectfully, those are my submissions, member of the committee, and again, my apologies for the technical hiccups here.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a question for you. It appears you've got a concern with respect to residential use as well as the proposed use. And I hear that you've brought up a concern of vehicular traffic. I asked, how, I have a little bit hard time understanding how would the vehicular traffic, for a use that is, for a veterinary clinic be any different from a different, commercial or professional office type use where you have people coming and going?
I assume that's a question for me?
Yeah, it's a question for you.
Yes, if you look at the site plan, sir, I don't even think we have to go down into that discussion because requesting this use by variance is unlawful. But if I had to test that theory, which I well appreciate, you have a veterinary clinic that is having 5 to 6 parking spots in the rear there. There's no showing of disabled barrier-free access. They may lose a parking spot. And what's coming in and out of that property is not just people with their animals. There will be rendering type ambulance or whatever you do with unfortunate demise of animals. And there will be, professional clean offices on either sides and residential immediately behind. I believe that that's incompatible. And that's why the city has not permitted a veterinary clinic along the strip on Shepherd Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions?
Michael.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can I just clarify with the speaker who he is representing?
Yes, I'm representing the owner of the property, which indicated is a numbered company. It's 1552332 Ontario, Inc., as well as, sir, the tenant at the property, Mr. Daniel Isakow, ISAKOW, carrying on business as Framework Dental.
And just to confirm, the address of your client is 164 Shepherd Avenue West, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay. And just so I understand correctly, what is the current use of the adjacent building? What is that being used at right now?
It's been for the last 25 years a dental office. It would have been a use that's permitted under the bylaw because it's mandated as a practitioner's office.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? We have a question for you.
Can the, I'm directing to the applicant. Can the applicant?
We're not quite back at the applicant yet.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we will move back to the applicant, and I will turn it over to you to ask your question.
Okay, I just, does the applicant know what the use of the building is to the west of the subject property?
It's the kind of professional medical office, something like massage, and something like that.
Professional office, I heard a dental or massage. Is that correct?
To the
sir?
west? Okay.
And the number of the address to the west, the subject address you're referring to is you referring to 164? Or you're referring to, you're on the other side?
To the west, I think it would be a higher number, right? Yeah.
172 or yeah. No, that's noted. Yes, 164 Avenue West, one property over to the east. On the other side, however, I believe you're asking about the opposite side. So I just go back to the applicant. Are you aware? And I believe the number's 156, if I'm not mistaken. Shep.
160. You mean 167?
Yeah, let's pull up the site plan. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, 172. Do you know what the use is at 172, sir?
Hold on, please. I'm not sure. 172.
He's not sure. Okay.
The right side of the property is dental office.
Okay. It's okay. If you don't know, you don't know. So you've heard the agent speak on behalf of your neighbors. I'm going to turn it back to you and provide you an opportunity to comment on some of the things that he's put forward. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Anything ask you?
That's fine. And do we have any questions? Any additional questions before we head into committee?
No, I was wondering, I really wanted to hear what the applicant would reply to the opposition, but.
Are there any questions that you
No, the
specifically that you'd like to maybe have the applicant elaborate on? I want to also make sure that
Sure.
there's enough communication back and forth that everybody sort of understands what's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sure. I wanted the applicant to comment in terms of the staff report. I understand that there were conversation about the argument in terms of a medical office is there. How about this? How about, but in terms of a zoning bylaw, like the opposition mentioned, so I'd like to hear this from the applicant. But if the applicant, it's up to applicant if they want to reply on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I have noticed one thing in the around the corner. There was an vet clinic without boarding kennel.
Do you know what address that's at?
I have no idea for the time. I will let you know. So if we don't have a boarding kennel, overnight boarding kennel in the clinic, just only providing a medical care to animals, yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then for the second story, we will change this from residential use to the other permitted use.
Yeah, I actually had my own question concerning the residential use on the second floor. So the person that presented today in opposition noted that the residential on the second floor is not a permitted use either, and that you may require additional relief. But I understand that's not before us today, but I perhaps just wanted to ask if you perhaps just make you aware of that. And if you feel that something's been missed, you are permitted to request a deferral.
Okay, I would like to defer.
And you would, for what reason?
Yeah, I just clearly know the veterinary clinic doesn't allow in this property. And basically, zoning bylaw 7625 says that veterinary clinic means professional office, as the definition said. It allowed in the zoning bylaw, but that would be question. If the boarding kennels in the clinic, it doesn't allow. Yes, I understand. Yeah, if we move the boarding kennel in the clinic, it could be approved.
Through you, Mr. Chair, whether this is deferred and comes back, you're going to have the same variance before you,
Yeah.
regardless of whether the use on the second floor is going to be requested at a future time.
Okay.
The primary application is for the proposed veterinary use. I doubt that is going to change if it is deferred and comes back.
Okay. Yeah, let's deal with the variance before us today. Maybe I think we might take this to committee unless we have any other questions. Okay, let's move this into committee now. Thank you to the applicant and the other speaker. Comments? Motions? Oh, just speak into your mic. Ms. Martin.
My feeling is that it's a broad sort of, that it does fall under medical, and it would be a caretaker's residence above. So I'm feeling like if we don't approve and it has to go to zoning, that it will eventually get it. And I think it's that we're mincing words here with what the actual use could be for that building.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Of course, Mr. Fazeli.
In my opinion, I think based on what I see in front of me through the variance and the comments from the applicants and the opposition, I have different opinion on this. I'm thinking that it would be more appropriate that this situation goes through a zoning bylaw. So for that, I'm just moving forward in the motion to refuse this application, as it is the variance do not meet the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw.
Okay, do I have a seconder for the motion? Okay. Seconded by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. The application is opposed. Okay, and I'm going to dissent on this one. We have 3 in favor, 1 opposed. The motion passes. The application is refused. Okay, let's move back to. Yes, let's go back to item number 1, 1698 Victoria Park Avenue. The purpose of the application is to convert the existing garage and storage areas to provide 5 new residential units within the existing apartment building, as well as an indoor amenity space. 1698 Victoria Park Avenue, item number 1. And we've got some variances before us for the number of parking spaces, variances involving accessibility to an accessible parking space, bicycle space width, bicycle space location, accessibility to indoor amenity space, lot landscaping, and the number of bicycle spaces required for each dwelling unit. On file, I have material from the applicant as well as a memorandum from Transportation Services. Do we have the applicant with us?
And through you, Mr. Chair, I believe this is the one where they may be requesting a deferral.
Yes, that's correct, yeah. Good morning.
Mr. Chair, committee, this is Musa representing the owner of the property. We want to request for deferral for this application just to address the request of the transportation department and provide justification, the parking study justification. So we would like to request a deferral, please.
Okay, very good. So just to confirm, you're requesting a deferral to work with Transportation Services further?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Just confirming, I believe we have some more speakers to this item.
We've unmuted Sean.
Good morning, Chairman. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you. I'm well.
Yes, I'm here. Good. So I'm here for, I guess, opposing of the turning the garages into apartments.
Mr. Chair, we're
I'm
only
just gonna-
speaking to the deferral.
Yeah,
at this point.
we're only speaking to the request for deferral at this time. So are you opposed to the request for deferral?
Opposing to, as in, can you elaborate a little more?
Of course. The applicant has made a.
I'm an-
Yes, let me explain. The applicant is making a request to defer the application so that they can have more time to communicate, work with Transportation Services. So we're just dealing with the deferral right now. We're not getting into the merits of the application. So I have to ask if you have any objection to the request to defer the application to a later date.
Not at this moment.
Okay, thank you. We have our other speaker. I believe Ms. Moore. Good morning. Ms. Moore?
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. So we
Hello?
have a request for defer.
Okay,
Actually,
perfect.
before I get you going, can you just state your address for us?
Sure, it's 1698 Victoria Park Avenue, Unit 406, Toronto, M1R1R2.
Thank you. The applicant has put forth a request to defer this application to a later date. So without getting into the merits of the application, I'm going to ask if you have any comments at this time or any objection to the request for deferral.
No objection to the deferral at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to take it back now to the, actually, I don't think we need to go back to the applicant. Do we have any questions at this time? Okay, if there's no questions, we'll move this into committee. Mr. Reid?
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to hear that the applicant is looking to work with Transportation Services. So I move deferral, but I would also request that the applicant gets in touch with the residents at the building, because we've had 2 call in, so apparently there are some issues from their perspective. So move deferral for the purposes of dealing with transportation, but also canvassing the residents.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, Second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Motion carries. The deferral request or the deferral motion is approved. Okay. We are
Thank you so much,
going to go.
Chair.
Thank you. We're going to go back to item number 2 now. 8 Cameron Crescent. And let's get the applicant back. And if I can ask staff to pull up the correct public notice so we can just go back and determine those variances that are being modified. Do we have Ms. Evangelista with us?
Mr. Chair, I am back.
Welcome back. Okay, did we provide you
All
enough
right,
time?
I believe. Oh, yes, most definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
Good to hear.
So I do. I'm not sure what I'm not sure what happened there, but yeah, same date. Anyways, moving ahead. So now variance number 2 has been removed.
Okay, for that's yeah. Thank you. Just for the driveway width, if you can just read, just so we make sure that we've got the right variances. So for the driveway width, we're removing.
Correct. Then let's move on to variance number 11, the proposed sidewall main height is now 7.45 meters.
Okay.
Variance number 12, the proposed front yard landscaping area increased to 46.74%.
46.74%. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Variance number 13, proposed front yard soft landscaping. That variance has been removed.
Okay. Very good.
Variance number 14, the proposed elevation of the lowest point of a vehicle entrance, also removed.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
We got those amendments? Yep. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, great.
Okay. Just give us a moment.
No problem.
7.45. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna ask my colleagues if they require a presentation from you at this time.
Okay.
Okay. But we do have speakers, so perhaps a brief presentation would be.
Okay, so the subject property that you have in front of you, the west wall will be remaining. What the owners are proposing to do is they're proposing an addition at the rear and at the side of the home. As you know, the comments that we made and transportation made comments, which I respectfully submit no longer apply as we have removed those 2 variances that they referred to. So moving forward, as I mentioned, we do have a side yard setback on the west side, which is existing. And what we have actually bumped the house in at the back where we are proposing our addition. And in some points it's 0.91, and it opens up to approximately 1.23 on the west side. On the east side, we also have a side yard setback, and that's at pinch points along that east wall. However, there are areas where it does open up to 1.19 meters, just shy of the permitted 1.20 meters. So let's talk about coverage. So this particular house, we are asking for a coverage of 39%, which includes the rear deck area, but the house itself is approximately 36%, which I believe is not far off from the 35% lot area. And as I mentioned, it relates to the other areas at the front of the house, the porch, and at the deck at the back. Our building length has been taken from that front canopy to the rear yard. As you see, if you refer to my submission, variance number 3, where I've outlined all the variances relating to the side yard setback to the front porch, the setbacks to on the west side and east side, and the length of the dwelling. We have reduced the main wall height to 7.45 meters, which is more in keeping with what is existing in the neighborhood. Our landscaping has been increased. As we see, does not differ from what we currently have, because as I mentioned, we are altering the home that is currently there. And I am open to as you know, we've worked quite closely with planning staff to make the changes, and they are amenable to. And I am in receipt of the Leaside Residents Association letter. They do make a reference to the large tree, which is in front of the garage at the back. I'd like to add that that tree is 0.22 in diameter. It will remain. The garage is slab on grade, so it will not be affecting the roots. And if we refer to the site plan, you'll also note that the tree canopy of that tree is nowhere near where the construction of the home is, and the deck will be on sonotubes. So again, will not be affecting the tree that is in front of the garage. And other comments that they've made reference to, we have now revised. So I submit that this is truly a form of intensification. It's very characteristic to other homes in the neighborhood. And I would also like to add that the owners did speak to 6, 10, 3, 5, 7, and 9, Cameron, who are all in support, some of which we received letters of support, albeit late submission, but we did receive letters of support. And I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions at this time?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have one question about regarding the height of the proposed dwelling. Why does this height need, what is the purpose of the variance? Like, why does it need to be this high?
Well, we've brought down the main wall height. We brought down the main wall height, and that just allows having a little additional height on the overall height. Having the additional overall height allows for a higher ceiling height in the second floor, as 8.5 meters. And we're not, our floor heights are not excessive. We are asking for 9-foot ceilings. And I believe the upper level is 8.5 meters in height. And that just allows us to have that full height in the upper level, bringing the main wall height down.
Through you, Mr. Chair, with this proposed height that we are talking about, so can you elaborate how would it be, how does it fit within the, how does it fit within the community there, and then also how is it minor?
Through you, Mr. Chair, my apologies. How does it, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Can you elaborate how does satisfy the test of minor and also within the fit within the community?
Well, as you know, as I did say, I did talk very closely with planning. There is a diversity in heights in this area that are from 8 meters for flat roofs, 8.5 and 9 meters, and 9.5 meters. So this is very consistent with what is in the neighborhood. There are other homes, as I discussed with planning, that is quite consistent. And that is why one of the reasons why planning didn't have an issue with the overall height, is as we recognize 8.5 meters is quite low for a peaked roof, 2 floors. And I would submit that, it does consist with, it is, consists with other properties in the immediate area.
I have a technical question. I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot, but you wouldn't happen to know the any of the side main wall heights for the property directly adjacent? It looks like a fairly newer build. Just believe it at number 6.
No, I do not, but if you just bear with me for 1 second.
No problem. I apologize for putting you on a spot like that.
So if we look at the rear photos, if we look at the rear photo on page 2, you'll see there's one particular picture where our home is in the middle and the neighboring home is on the right side. So this essentially what the plan and the build and the construct was, and the design was to be and mirror that particular home. So that was something that the owners did discuss with the neighbors, and that is the consistency between this home and the neighboring home. So I don't have that exact number. However, I can respectfully say that the home that we're proposing is of same, if not slightly lower than that house.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions at this time? We believe we have some other speakers.
Oh, here. This is us. Him.
Good morning.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Can you state your name and address for us, please?
Hello. Oh my God.
Hello.
Tell me you can't get.
Can you hear us?
What?
We can hear you.
Okay. Believe it or not, if he can't get through, he'll shoot himself.
We must have done this before.
A million times.
Hello, Mr. Frid, Miss
Something's not
Fisher?
working.
I don't believe it. Maybe they can't
Miss
hear us.
Fisher. What?
Perhaps maybe we have another speaker to move on to where we can troubleshoot.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Cattell. I'm co-president of the East Side Resident Association.
And your address?
The address of the association is 1601 Bayview Avenue.
Okay.
I've been listening and watching. I'm sorry?
Oh, do you have any comments, or you said you're listening and watching today?
No. Yes, I do. As I
very
say,
good.
I've been listening and watching to the proceedings this morning and the confusion that's been going on, and as indicated by the applicant and their agent, there have been some changes made to the application, which are made, from our perspective, they're being made on the fly without information available to the public, right? Or the neighbors. But anyway, the changes are certainly an improvement. They have increase the one of the issues, of course, was the lot coverage and the front yard landscaping, which are very sensitive issues. We want to preserve the greenscape. We want to preserve the trees, and the improvement there from 35% back to 46% in front yard landscaping is certainly appreciated. We would like to see no variance there at all, but it's better than it was. Where the application is still, in our opinion, excessive, is in the volume of the home. The length, the volume, as measured, the density, as measured by FSI. The height is 9.26 meters. That's almost a meter higher than the bylaw. The length is 17.46 versus the 17 meters. The FSI is 0.7, whereas the bylaw is 0.6. That's a 13% premium over the permitted. And the lot coverage is 39%, and lot coverage is actually not very common in Leaside, whereas the bylaw is 35%. And the other comment is in terms of the Leaside guidelines. We have planning architectural guidelines for Leaside, and the facade does not really support the guidelines. It appears as a 3-story home, which does not fit the guidelines. But I have to say that the applicant has certainly has certainly made some improvements on the landscaping and on the preservation of the. It was appeared like a double garage, and we're now back to a regular single garage. We don't have no double garages, no double driveways in this area, and that's a good improvement. So we're still opposed to some of the excessive FSI and height, but we appreciate some positive changes. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I have a question myself for you. Just regarding the height, I'm just looking at the adjacent property at number 6. And I took a height measurement off of the survey at the top of roof elevation. It appears that the proposal is either in line or smaller than the adjacent property. I'm just hoping you might be able to speak to that.
It appears to be an outlier. If you look along the street, mostly the prevailing character is people add on the back and maintain the existing front. So agreed on the west side. I would say it's an outlier. It obviously was approved, fair enough, but it doesn't represent the prevailing character. I would submit it does not present the prevailing character in the neighborhood.
Okay, fair enough. And I appreciate that you've admittedly identified it. You call it an outlier. I appreciate that you've identified it as such. Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay. Let's move. Let's try to go back to our other speakers and see if we can get them. Mr. Frid and Ms. Fisher.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I contacted them by phone, and neither wish to speak. They're just listening in.
Oh, very good. Okay. Do we have any other speakers then? Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have any other speakers.
Thank you. So there's no other speakers at this time. Let's go back to the applicant. If we got the applicant back?
Oh, Mr. Chair, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. So I'd like to, we can hear
Okay.
you. I'd like to provide you an opportunity just to respond to some of the comments that were made.
Okay. So as I mentioned, we are keeping the west wall. The coverage as it relates to the house and the rear deck. The house itself is 36%. which is not, very far off of the proposed 35%. If you take a look at this area, it is undergoing regeneration, this particular area itself, as you see from the house at number 6. And if you take a look at my street view east and west, you'll see that some of the characteristics that we're proposing on the front elevation of this home are similar to also characteristics on other homes, i.e. the bay window and the front porch coverage. So I do submit that, this is what they are proposing. This is their forever home, multi-generational. They have their parents coming in. They need the space. It's quite different timing now. And this allows them to have, their parents, and they have small children and caregivers to be in their home with them. As we know, across the street from this house, there is a 3-story home, which is much larger than what we are proposing. And the height itself, we are asking for an additional height. As I mentioned, it's not that we're proposing 11-meter first floor heights. It is very reasonable what we are asking for. 8.5 meters does not quite allow much room on the second floor. We are doing the pitched roof. We have brought down our main wall height down to 7.45, which is closer in keeping to the 7.4, which I believe, is also because the main wall height would contribute to the massing and the look and optically from the street. However, I believe with the comparison, as I mentioned, from the neighboring properties to this property, optically, I respectfully submit that it won't be as observed as, a monstrous home. And we have increased the landscaping at the front. It doesn't deter from far off from what we currently have. I believe it's, we are asking for an extra foot of driveway width, but we also comply with the driveway. We also comply with landscaping in the back. And I respectfully submit that the proposal that you have in front of you, we have worked quite extensively and quite closely with planning to have a home and to have a home which is in keeping and closer in keeping characteristically and in size with other homes on Cameron.
Okay, thank you. Just a follow-up question.
There is,
Of course, go on.
No, I was just going to state that there is a mix of physical characters in the immediate context, and as we can see from the photos that I provided.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that was, to your comment, is similar to the follow-up question I had. You've heard that the person speaking in opposition has put forth that the adjacent property should be considered as an outlier. I just want to provide an opportunity, if there's any other examples in the immediate area that we could point to support the additional height that's being requested.
Yes, you can. There is, 1 second.
In the meantime, I'm just going to ask my colleagues if they have any other questions. Okay. I think you mentioned as well across the street there was a full 3rd story.
Number 3. Number three, Cameron.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a full 3rd story. They have a full 3rd story. And then if we move on further down the road, you'll also see other than number 6. 4 is similar to what we are proposing.
Okay.
And then you have those on, you have a couple of homes on, I believe it's McNaughton.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, McNaughton.
Okay. I think at this time we're ready to move into committee. All right. Let's move into committee now.
Yes, through Mr. Chair, if there's no other comments, I'm happy to make a motion to approve the application as revised. I think the applicant did good amount of job to satisfy the request of a staffing report and transportation memo also, which mentioned. So, and I think it satisfies the 4th test.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fazeli. I believe Ms. Casson has a comment.
I just would recommend that we also add the condition that it be developed substantially in accordance with the site plan that was filed.
Yes, I agree with that, yes.
Okay, do I have a seconder for the motion? Okay, thank you. Seconded by Ms. Martin. All in favor? Okay, the application is approved. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Let's take, how are we doing, Steph? 5, 10, 10? Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll resume at 11:40 a.m. All right, we're back. We're on item number 6, 21 Hayden Street. Purpose of the application is to construct a new dwelling. We've got some variances in front of us for front yard setback, FSI, and side main wall height. Before us, I've got some material from the applicant. We have the agent with us.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is Ali Shakiri, 326 Shepherd Avenue East.
Okay, very good. And it looks like we have another speaker on this item, so I'm going to ask for a brief presentation from you, sir.
Sure. We have submitted some material in support. We're asking for increasing the floor area from 0.6 to 0.8. Very commonly precedented in the neighborhood, whether for new houses or renovations, numbers a lot higher are precedented. That's in this case, we needed just 0.8. That's what we're asking. The front yard variance also is helping us to put the building between the two neighboring houses. If we had to comply with the front yard, you have that graph actually on a screen. The red line is showing the rear wall of the house as of right, which would be in angle of view for the neighbor on the north, and also creating additional visible wall for the neighbor on the south. So we believe is appropriate and everybody is going to benefit from it. In addition to that, we're asking for the wall height. That currently 70% of the side walls can be up to 8.5 meters. Now we're asking for 50%. I have a graph, another graph, I think it's exhibit B or C. Yeah, that's basically that highlighted yellow area is what where the wall height, additional wall height we need. And if we go to the next page, C, that the blue area is the proposed building. Those yellow shades that we're putting is actually for a house that will comply with the wall height entirely. I'm sure you've seen many other houses in the neighborhood. So it's a very sensitive touch what we're proposing. That this house on the front and the back portion is majorly lower than all of the new houses, and it possibly is shorter than many of the existing houses. It's just that middle portion, and we just need that variance for a small portion of it. I have no further comments, but happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing as there's no questions, I believe we have another speaker.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. If you can state your name and address for
Great.
us, please, sir.
Thank you. My name is Rick Klestenik, and I'm at 17 Haddon Street, and I'm the neighbor adjacent on the south side of the applicant's property. So the reason for my participation today is to discuss some issues or concerns I have with respect to drainage. The previous owner, at some point about a year and a half ago, made some modifications to their driveway and inadvertently created a situation where there was water running basically from their existing garage all the way down the driveway and into my basement. So after some collaboration with my neighbor, we had jointly repaved the area, and I repaved the entire section along the side of my house to ensure proper drainage. So in going forward through construction, my request is that the applicant be very sensitive with respect to drainage during construction, to minimize any damage to the driveway or the paved section on my property, so as to minimize the risk of any water running into my basement. And then also, once the construction is complete, I noticed that there are a couple of downspouts that drain into the area between our two homes. And my request is that we be sensitive to make sure that those downspouts are situated in such a way to minimize the water that drains towards my property. In particular, there's a sod section at the front of my house that's shown, where previously the water had flown down the driveway. So my concern is that any water that may accumulate between the homes get caught at that front section as a bit of a barrier, and again, pool into my basement. So really what I'd like to get across is my concern with respect to drainage. And I ask for the applicant to be sensitive with respect to how the drainage is handled so that we minimize any risk of damage to my property.
Okay, thank you very much. And just to confirm, you are at number 17?
Correct.
Okay.
The numbers are odd. We are the direct neighbor, even though the numbers don't sequence properly.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to confirm that. Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions? Okay, no questions. I'm going to turn it back to the applicant for a response.
Yes, thanks for the comments from the neighbor. I think the drainage is that goes without saying. Basically, there is the other provisions of the bylaw, the Ontario Building Code, and that is not related to any variance, basically, that we're asking. But I think that as I mentioned, it goes without saying everything that the gentleman mentioned, and I'm also sure that it's the mandate of my client to be as careful as possible. This is a sensitive neighborhood, and similar to any other neighborhood anyways, and they're going to be very careful not to damage other properties and to do as clean of a job as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, if there's no questions, I'll move into committee at this time.
I can make a motion to approve this application based on the fact that it meets the 4 tests and the variances are generally minor in nature, and to respect any drainage issues within at site plan.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Martin. Do I have a seconder?
I have a comment.
Do we have a comment?
On the motion, just to.
Of course, yes.
I'm suggesting or recommending that we also add a condition that the property be developed substantially in accordance with the elevation drawings, because the variance is only for a portion of the building, and it would be good to tie it to the plans, if my colleague agrees.
Ms. Barton?
That I agree.
Okay, so
I'm happy to second it.
okay, so we've added a condition to tie substantially in accordance with the plans. Any specific drawings? Or the elevations. Thank you. Okay, do I have a seconder?
Me.
Okay, of course, seconded by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. The application is approved. Moving on to item.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 7, 96 Westgate Boulevard. The purpose of the application is to construct a new dwelling. We've got variances for exterior main wall height, building length, building depth, south side yard setback, front porch encroachment, canopy encroachment, platform size at a 2nd story, number of stories, front yard landscaping, and front yard soft landscaping.
I believe the agent is with us today at the podium.
Great. Wonderful.
Thank
you. You want to speak at the podium there? So on file, I've got material from the applicant as well as a staff report and form letters in support, as well as 1 letter of objection.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. I am the planner retained by the owner. We did reach out and speak to...
Your name and address for us?
Yes, sorry. My name is Waqas Ahmed. I'm from Hilltop Development Corp. We're a planning consultancy company, and my address is 1357 Nielsen Road, Suite 79, Toronto, Ontario.
Okay. Just to confirm, this is our only speaker today? Okay. Okay. I'm going to ask my colleagues whether we require a full presentation. Okay. So we have reviewed all of the material before us. It doesn't appear we need a further presentation, but the floor is yours if there's anything you'd like to add before we head into committee.
Through you, Mr. Chair, first of all, I'd like to express my gratitude and appreciation for staff. I've had an opportunity to work with Julia Cavelli, the planner, on the file over the last 9 months to perfect my design to ensure that it meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw as well as the Toronto official plan. Therefore, I'm of the opinion that our proposed development represents good land use planning and meets the intent of the bylaw from a zoning perspective. In terms of design, we've had numerous iterations to perfect the design to reflect the neighborhood and its character. Our variances that we're requesting are really minor in nature. We're just trying to work with the lot that we have. In terms of letter of support, the neighbor immediately to the south, Mr. Christopher, he signed a letter of support, as well as Nicole Leslie, who also signed a letter of support, which is another neighbor. The application before you, I think, is quite simple, meets the 4 test of the Planning Act, as well as the Section 45, subsection 1 of the Planning Act, and I'm happy to take any comments or questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you. Question from my colleague, Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. There's a planning report that recommends the amendment of variance 1 and 2 to 8 meters. Are you aware of that, or?
Can you?
I believe there was, just look at the address. I believe
think
this
that,
is the...
that was attached in error.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apologies to...
I almost made the same,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, disregard the
about
question then, thanks.
So that said, actually, can I just, just following off of your question, Mr. Reid, just to confirm, we don't have any staff report specific to this application?
There is a staff report. We can put it up on the screen.
Thank you. Mr. Reid, we're going to pull up the correct staff report.
If I may, the staff report is very brief. Staff report's essentially recommending approval. Sure, thank you.
One of our staff reports, just so you understand, one of our staff reports accidentally got put in your package, and we just want to make sure we're setting it aside.
Okay. Because
Yeah,
I checked
that's why we're...
Yeah, I checked the portal this morning just to make sure, and I got a hard copy here with me too.
Yeah, it doesn't appear there's any surprise reports.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Just give staff a moment to pull that up for us.
No problem.
Thank you. Okay. So we've got a recommendation that the proposal be developed substantially in accordance with the elevation drawings that are attached to the report. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for that. And also I'd like to express my gratitude for essentially Jenny Codes. She was very helpful throughout the application process, as well as Julia. I think staff did a tremendous job working with me throughout this application. Given the fact that, with new changes to the Planning Act being made, it's difficult for applicants to essentially perfect applications, but this has been an application where I've had an opportunity to work closely with Julia, and I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with her, and I'm really appreciative of staff's efforts.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's move into committee. We have a motion. Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to bring a motion of approval. I think there is a long list of variances, but they're all really minor, I think, in amount, but more so in impact. There's no negative impacts that come from approving these variances, I think. So I move approval subject to the community planning condition.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reid. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? Okay, the motion passes. The application is approved.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on, item number 9. Oh, I apologize. Item number 8, getting a little ahead of myself. 174 RANLEIGH Avenue. The purpose of the application is to construct a 1-story addition to the front of the existing dwelling, a 2-story addition to the rear of the dwelling in conjunction with other interior and exterior alterations. The applicant is also proposing to construct a new detached garage. Before us, we have variances for front yard setback, side yard setback for a platform, side yard setback in general for building, and FSI. On file, I have material from the applicant, including correspondence between the applicant and community planning, memorandum from urban forestry, as well as a letter of objection from 1619 Mount Pleasant Road. Do we have the applicant with us?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Gloria Postelou. I'm the applicant, I'm the agent for the applicant and the architect representing 174 RANLEIGH Avenue.
And your address?
6 Dartnell Avenue, Toronto.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for a brief presentation from you.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you.
As you summarize, we are proposing to construct a 1-story addition at the front and a 2-story addition at the rear, as well as a detached garage/carport. We are occurring 4 minor variances, 2 of which are triggered by the existing conditions of the house, and all of which we feel are minor in nature. Variance number 1 is for the front yard setback. I would like to clarify that this variance has been discussed with the planner, and it is increased to 3.01 meters instead of 2.15 meters, which was in the mailed notice.
Okay, can you just identify the number of the variance on the notice for us?
Variance number 1.
Okay, thank you. Variance number 1. And I should ask, are there any other modifications to the variances that are before us today?
No, that's the only one.
Okay, so actually, if you can just repeat for staff, the modification that is being made to variance number 1?
Yes, it should read that the front yard setback will be 3.01 meters.
Okay, thank you.
Great. The drawings have been updated to reflect this, so on file is the revised site plan and floor plans with this setback at the front. This brings the front of the house in line with the existing porch and the neighbor's porches as well. Variances number 2 and 3 are for side yard setbacks. These are triggered by aligning the rear addition and the deck with the existing non-conforming setback of the house. The existing house also has a setback of 0.3 meters from the side yard. And variance number 4 is for an FSI of 0.79. This is a reflection of the narrow lot, which requires 3 bedrooms on the second floor to be laid out linearly. 2 of the bedrooms are less than 10 by 10 feet in size, and the total area of the house after the proposed additions would be only 120 square meters, which is not a large house. The owner has been in contact with the immediate neighbors on either side, and they support the proposed additions. She has also spoken with the neighbor to the rear of the property who was concerned about access over the rear laneway. We have submitted a copy of our deed as well as the deed of the concerned neighbor, and it clarifies that access to the right-of-way is noted and included for both of these properties. There are 3 properties along RANLEIGH that have access over the right-of-way. We understand that the neighbor submitted their letter of concern prior to the conversation and to the clarification about the right-of-way, but they are now satisfied with this as well. We also understand that urban forestry would like us to apply for a permit to remove the trees at the rear and are happy to comply with that or alternate planning or whatever they may request. Thank you, and we're open to any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, no, if there's no questions, I believe we have another speaker. Good morning, Mr. Purchase.
I'm just here to listen in.
Ah, very good. Okay, thank you. All right, let's take it back to the applicant for a moment. Seeing, we don't have any other questions? Okay, if there's no other questions or comments at this time, we can move into committee.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if no one has any comments, I'd like to forward a motion to approve this application as revised. I think variance number 1 revised to 3.02 with the condition of a forestry number 1. 3.01, right? Sorry, 3.01. I believe it's the application satisfies the 4 test. Therefore, this is the reason for my decision. Thanks.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Second by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Okay, the motion is approved. The application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 9. It's been brought to my attention that one of our members may have a conflict with this item. So I'm going to ask Ms. Martin to step out.
Mr. Chair, we need clarification as to the nature of the conflict.
Thank you. Ms. Martin, if you could just clarify for us what the nature of the conflict is.
In my previous job, I worked closely with Monica Silberg on the subject project.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Martin. Okay, so the subject address is 110, 114, and 120 Broadway Avenue. The proposal is seeking to reduce the required residential visitor parking spaces. We've got 2 variances to specifically reduce those parking spaces from 24 to 10. On file, we have material from the applicant as well as a memorandum from Transportation Services. Do we have the applicant with us? Yes. Good morning. Good afternoon, I should say.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
we're past noon now.
It's nice to see all of you in person. Last name is Bronskill. First initial is D for David. I'm here as agent for the applicant, and my address is 333 Bay Street, Suite 3400 in Toronto.
Okay, Mr. Bronskill, I noticed that there's another agent or another speaker. Is that, do you guys work together or is separate?
I'm not sure who the other speaker is. Yes, we would work together. Yes.
Okay, so
it's just me. Monica won't need to.
So
speak.
it's just you today then?
Yes.
Okay, just give us a moment here. And if I'm not mistaken, Transportation is recommending deferral of the application?
Yeah, we do have that memo. I can speak to that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Actually, I will give you the floor at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a presentation I can walk through for the committee. I would simply note there is a short planning letter from Hunter and Associates. We do have a parking supply assessment on file as well with the application from BA Group. We do have the memo from Transportation Services. I'd say that memo, Mr. Chair, is actually a bit puzzling, and here's why it's puzzling. The variance that's before the committee doesn't seek to reduce visitor parking below the standard that has been adopted by City Council. And let me just explain that for you. The variance, and chronologically, figure 4 of our presentation may be the most helpful. We've got some slides that show you where the site is. It's got great proximity to transit, Yonge and Eglinton, and also the LRT station at Mount Pleasant. It's had an approval that goes back to an LPAT approval in 2019. And the intervening step, thank you, that's a great slide. The intervening step is February of 2022, City Council adopted new parking standards on a citywide basis. That's bylaw 89, 2022. So if we were submitting this today as a new rezoning application, we would actually not have to seek the relief that I'm seeking from you. We're simply looking to implement the visitor parking standard that's in bylaw 89, 2022. So why I say the parking, the memo from Transportation Services is a bit puzzling. They're asking us to study something that's already been studied, that's been recommended by the city's transportation department, and that has been adopted by City Council. So BA Group, and I don't mean to throw, no pun intended, transportation staff under the bus, and there is very good transit service in this area. BA Group has reached out to them 5 times since we saw that memo with phone calls. They have not called Alan Lloyd at BA Group back to have a discussion, so I can only speculate. I don't know whether they think we're going for a lower visitor standard than bylaw 89, 2022, which is why they want some type of site utilization study. But frankly, the project's under construction, we can't even do a site utilization study because the project's under construction. If we did a site utilization study, it would track the number of construction vehicles coming in and off the site. It wouldn't track the use of visitor parking. So the deferral they're requesting to do that study is a deferral that could be for a year. It's really prejudicial. So we're hopeful the committee can just proceed with it today. We're hopeful the committee can see the logic that we're just implementing the council approved standard, and that from a timing perspective, if we were doing this application today as opposed to the approval from 3 years ago, this would be the as of right standard and we wouldn't have to seek any site specific relief. So that's the overall presentation. I'm happy to then answer questions for the panel if you're still troubled by the transportation memo.
Thank you very much. That was fairly well explained. Do we have any questions? No questions at this time. Okay, if there are no questions, we will move this into committee. Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to the agent for explaining the variance request. I think this is entirely reasonable and obviously in line with the purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw, which has subsequently changed. So I do agree that I think the transportation report is odd, and I don't agree with their request for deferral. So I move approval of the application with no conditions.
Do I have a seconder? A second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Motion passes. The application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you in person, Mr. Bronster.
Thank you.
All right. Can just get Ms. Martin back. Thank you, Mr. Reid. I'm going to check in as well at this time, just make sure we can push straight through to lunch. Is that's okay with everybody? Okay. Item number 10, 90 Lynnhaven Road. Purpose of the application is a proposal to construct a 2-story single-family dwelling with a rear deck. Variance is sought for front yard setback, driveway width, rear yard setback, lot coverage, front yard stair width, platform encroachment into a rear yard setback, building length and building depth. On file, I have material from the applicant, form letters of support, and a letter of objection. I also have a late community planning staff report. Do we have the applicant with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning. Can you please state your name and address for us?
Yep, it's Sarah Ifra, 2675A like Apple, Bathurst Street, Toronto, M6B 0A7.
Okay. I'm going to ask for a brief presentation from you at this time.
Yeah, sure. I did submit essentially what I would be discussing, so I can go through that briefly. I will note we do have a letter of support from our neighbor at number 92, which is our most affected neighbor. Our longest length is on that side. There's also a proposal behind this property, so we don't have a rear neighbor. It's an actual grassy area for the new site plan that's for the development that's behind them. So if we go through the list of variances, essentially variance number 1 is referring to the perfect. Okay, that front yard setback is actually referring just to the garage portion, which is 1 story. The rest of the front yard setback is 8.43 meters. So that's only really for a moment in the front elevation. In terms of our driveway, again, this is very, very minor and asked often and granted. We're about 6 inches wider than what we're allowed to be. So that, again, I wouldn't focus there. The variance number 3, that's for a minimum rear yard setback. We have revised that per the staff report to 7.07 meters.
Okay.
And that again is to the furthest point. If we would refer to the site plan, again, you don't need to switch it up because you did see these materials. But if you refer to the site plan, that's to the furthest 1-story portion of our proposal, which is breakfast area. The rest of the house, which is 2 stories, is set back 9.23 meters from our rear yard. So it's slightly more than what's required. Variance number 4 refers to the coverage. We have revised this number to 44.25%, again, per the staff report.
Okay, thank you.
And that also applies to the entire footprint, including those 1-story portions. So when I'm looking at impact, the impact of that number isn't as great as it sounds because the portions like we discussed before of the garage portion and then the breakfast room portion at the back, those are only 1 story. The actual 2-story portion is just at the 42% mark. So that's very in keeping with what's been requested and granted in the area. Variance number 5, this is very minor and has no effect on anyone. So if you want, I can answer questions about that later, but I'm going to move through that in the interest of time. Variance number 6 discusses the rear terrace. Again, I know the neighbor did comment on this, but this has 0 impact on anyone. It's virtually at grade, and we do not have any variances for softscape or anything in the rear yard. Variance number 7 refers to the overall building length. So it's similar to what we discussed about the breakfast room and the garage. What we're talking about is the overall length from the absolute front of the house, which is the garage wall, which is 1 story, to the all the way to the rear where the breakfast 1-story length is. So again, that's really only for a moment. The overall 2-story portion of the house, we've modified to 19 meters. So this variance should read 22.17 per the staff report.
So we are modifying variance number 7?
Yeah.
And variance number 8.
That's right, and exactly. So variance number 8, it's the same comment. I don't quite agree how they interpreted the overall depth, but that's okay. I'm just going to modify this to the 22.17 for the exact same reasons as we discussed in variance number 7. It's really for a moment, the impact of it is not that overall length. The impact really is the 2-story portion, which we've maintained at 19.03 meters. Again, I've had discussions with neighbors as well as staff, and they are satisfied with the changes that we've made.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions at this time? No questions. I believe we have another speaker. Ms. Jacobs.
That's me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Good afternoon. Could you please state your address for us?
Good afternoon. Yeah, so my name is Irina Jacobs, so former Glipova. I'm an owner of Lynnhaven Road 88.
Okay.
Lynnhaven Road, North York, M68 to K9. So abutting lot 521 to my neighbor at 19 Lynnhaven. So I have several objections regarding proposal, because initially I received the proposal that committee sent to me, and then my neighbor offered his corrections, but I go along with what you guys sent to me because it's just more organized. So number 1, paragraph number 3, even with these adjustments referring to the minimum rear setback, we're still looking at 23% changes, which is not, in my opinion, a minor. It really eliminate any privacy in my backyard, any privacy in my window, because my windows will be looking at the house, and they can look through the windows into my house. So I'm surrounded by high walls and windows looking not only in my backyard, but even in my windows in my bedroom, main bedroom. That's kind of my, and again, like it's increasing, we're drastically increasing hardscaping, and we're decreasing softscaping on their lot. Because we cannot control what's going to happen behind the backyard, even though the developer referred that it's going to be softscaping. We don't know what's going to happen in 5-10 years. It may be redeveloped and changed. We're looking at your lot, and we need to decide what is acceptable based on what your lot's size is and coverage for your lot size is. That's my point. So paragraph number 4. So we're looking at your lot coverage, which you changed to 44.25% would be lot coverage. It's still 9% difference. I believe, again, I'm going back to hardscaping and softscaping surface, because a combination of what you're proposing is going to reduce your softscaping significantly. All this rainwater and snow water that melts has to go somewhere, and unfortunately it's going to be taken by my house. We live in a small building which is 1 story. It's a regional house, and we are prone to water floods if that's we are going to reduce softscaping all around me. So that's my kind of very big concern about this. And then paragraph number 6, we're talking about your platform. So again, we're looking at on concrete building. It's not semi-permeable platform. It will be concrete platform that is going to cover substantial surface of the backyard and would not let water to penetrate anywhere. It's not, in my opinion, any of these minor adjustments, because you decreasing softscaping significantly in this case. And then lengths and depths, the same. Like, why don't we stick to regulations that already exist? They exist for a reason. They exist to protect not only you, but my property as well. And you proposing extra 2 meters into the length of extra 2 meters into the length of the building, and extra 3.17 meters into the depth, which is quite significant. And like developer refer to whoever represent developers, they refer that it's going to be only 1st story building with a dining, like breakfast area. But that breakfast area is going to be sitting on concrete platform as well. So that reduces that softscaping coverage significantly. It goes to into like very significant 63% altogether. Like those combinations is going to reduce that significantly. And frankly, increasing in size and decreased setback, it's very insensitive to my privacy and is spacing scale in the neighborhood. We don't have as big house anywhere around us as I looked. And there is no real increase in housing stock. Like we're just increasing one big house. We are building like a monster beside my small bungalow. That's pretty much all I can say. The rest, I don't have objections. Like I'm happy with the driveway being bigger garage. I understand people need it, but I think we need to look very seriously at this softscaping issue. Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Okay, no questions. I'm going to call back the applicant to specifically address the comments that were just made by the neighbor. And I will add, I have a little bit of concern with respect to the building length and depth in this case, particularly as it relates to the immediate context and where some of those rear main walls are landing. So I'm hoping the applicant might speak a little bit to that that variance, those variances, I should say.
So to address the neighbor's concern, when we talk about hard and softscape, we don't actually have a variance for that. We also don't have a variance for the wall height. But back to the hard and softscape, despite the fact that we don't have a variance, we do have to deal with all water drainage on our own property. So that will definitely be dealt with through the building permit process. So none of our variances actually have affected the drainage on the property in general anyway, as reflected by not having a variance for landscaping, hard or softscape. In terms of the overall length, again, a 19-meter house is consistent with the neighborhood and what's been developed. Currently, the two houses beside this house, the one to the south, which is the most affected neighbor, and they signed a letter of non-objection, is a small house that hasn't been rebuilt. And our neighbor to the north, who is not affected by the length of our house, has issues mainly with drainage and things like that. Shade and shadow do not affect her. She's to the north of us. Shade and shadow have minor effect on our southern neighbor. Again, when we look at the neighborhood, there are other homes that have been approved at 19 meters plus in terms of a two-story dwelling. I've done them myself. I'm going to reiterate again, the overall length and depth incorporates a small one-story bump out at the front where there's the garage and the breakfast area at the back, again, to the southern portion, to the northern portion of the lot. So it's not, I don't believe that the effect on this neighbor is impacted at all. Again, she mentioned the wall heights. We don't have that variance. She mentioned the drainage. We don't have those variances, and we will deal with it. And we've maintained in discussions with planning staff that the two-story portion would be in keeping with the other lengths that have been developed in the neighborhood of 19 meters. So again, if you have a more specific question about it, I can try to address that, but the number of 19 meters has been approved, and we've tried to maintain the one-story portions as that quote-unquote added length, but the impact of those portions are not the same as looking at it as one large number.
Do you have any specific addresses that correlate to any of those depth approvals? I know you noted the adjacent neighbor at number 80.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of the question, but
Sure, I asked if there's any specific addresses that relate to those building depths, and I know you brought up number 88. I might actually ask you to refer to that as well. It just seems like what's being proposed is going back substantially further than what is currently at number 88.
If you look at my supporting materials, there are some addresses that have that length, just if you scroll down to the end of it. So if you could pull that up again, we can take a look. So we've got Lynnhaven, Brookview, Prince Charles. We just did one on Manor Haven. Again, this happens to be sitting between, two houses that haven't, changed much in the last while. And the neighborhood in general is in flux and changing. But looking at the overall neighborhood and where things have changed, a few doors down at sorry, I'm just putting my glasses on here. At number 82, it's 9.40 meters. At 71, we're at 18.92. At 82, we're at 19.4. Sorry, at 41, we're at 20.17. On Brookview, if you look at that map, which is basically a street over there to the right-hand side of the drawing, we're at 19.8 meters for 98 Brookview. Prince Charles, again, is also a little off this map, but that I myself did at 19.5 meters. So things that are being developed are definitely being developed, with these numbers in mind. And again, having staff support of that shows that is something that is in keeping with what's being developed in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, that answers my question. Any other questions? Okay, seeing as that there's no additional questions and no more speakers, we will take this into committee. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to move a motion for approval to the application as amended, and subject to the condition in the planning staff report that the property be developed substantially in accordance with the revised site plan. I think that by tying this condition to the property, it controls the location of the extent to the building length and depth, and that satisfies my concern with that variance. I think that the application's minor and desirable for the neighborhood and meets the intent of the zoning and official plan.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I second that.
Okay, second by Mr. Fazeli, all in favor? Okay. The motion carries, the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you.
Moving on to item number 12. 52 Wedgewood Drive, the application, did I skip? I apologize. Thank you. Item number 11, which you can see we've got a number of speakers on, 33 Randolph Road. The purpose of the application is to construct a new 2-story detached dwelling and a garden suite in the rear yard. Before us, we have variances for a 2nd-story platform area, south side yard setback, north side canopy setback, front exterior main wall height, stair width, stair setback, building length, FSI, and setbacks for an architectural feature from the north and west property lines. For the garden suite, we have variances for a north side yard setback, rear side yard setback, 2 variances for angular planes, and a setback for encroachment of a canopy. On file, I have materials from the applicant, as well as letters of objection from number 3, number 10, 18, 22, 27, 31, 33, 34, 37, 38 Randolph, as well as 23 and 30 Southvale Drive, as well as 1A Rutherglen Road, as well as a joint letter from 25 residents in the neighborhood, as well as a late staff report from community planning. We have the applicant here with us today. Welcome.
Good morning, committee. Jonathan Benskowski.
Welcome.
Welcome. Nice to meet you, everybody in person. I did submit late last evening, probably about 4 o'clock, a revised list of variances that does coincide with the public notice. I'm happy to go over them in order. I also did submit a revised actual variance list of what we would be requesting today. What we see on the screen here is my revised variance list. Essentially, what we've removed from the variance is essentially all of the architectural features, as well as the encroachments of the architectural feature, as well as the size of the 2nd floor balcony.
Mr. Benkowski, before you go any further, I'm just going to ask, let's go through the notice.
Perfect.
Just so staff can make note of what is being modified with this application.
So I believe it's labeled zoning waiver that we submitted last evening.
Okay. Let's go off we're going to go off the public notice.
Absolutely. It coincides with it.
Okay, fantastic.
So variance number 1.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure we have two variances, number one. One is for a dwelling, one is for.
Sure, let's do the dwelling first.
Okay, I just want to clarify we're doing the dwelling first. Thank you.
So variance number 1 for the dwelling has been removed. Variance number 3 for the dwelling has been removed. Variance number 5 for the dwelling has been removed. Variance number 8 for the dwelling has been removed. My apologies. Variance number 9 for the dwelling has been removed. And
So
variance number 10.
Number 8 has
Number
not
8
been.
Number 8 remains, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And you said now variance number 10?
Has also been removed.
Okay.
So in essence, we've gone from 10 to 5 by essentially eliminating the architectural features as well as the balcony. In terms of the variance requested for the garden suite, this coincides with the staff report that you received, which deals with the setback to the rear being 1.87 meters. That is variance number 2. We have also submitted revised plans that indicate this. Variance number 2 for the garden suite has been increased to 1.87 meters. Through you, Mr. Chair, that would coincide with the recommendation of staff from the staff report.
Just to clarify, that's concerning the rear yard setback.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So those plans have also been filed with the committee.
Very good. All right, the floor is yours.
Okay, a couple of things. I'd like to just bring up the survey first to give a little context to the size of the lot itself. In terms of lease side, that area, what kind of the prevailing lot size would be, this is very narrow, but is deeper than the average lot in the lease side area. So the frontage we have here is essentially 7.93 meters at the rear. At the first, it does bow out a little bit, but that is for a very small portion of the property. So that 7.93 meters, again, is a reduced frontage from what the typical lease side lot would be, but then it has a 46.36 meter depth. Now that coincides with two parts of the variances that I want to cover. One is the proposed building length, okay? The ability of a deeper lot to handle somewhat of a deeper building on it as we examine what sort of the context of the zoning bylaw is of how we envision setbacks, building lengths. That's really situated on a 100-foot lot, being a 6-meter front yard setback, a 17-meter house, and a 7.5-meter rear yard setback. That is essentially the built forms we look for to achieve on a 100-foot lot. When we look at the property here, we have a 46.36 meter lot. We can handle and we can accommodate a little bit of an increase in depth for the dwelling. That also coincides with the separation that is proposed between the dwelling and the garden suite. It is well in excess of the 7.5 meters that is the zoning bylaw requirement. We are proposing 10.363 meter separation, or 35 feet 8 between the dwelling and the front main wall, or sorry, the side main wall that faces the garden suite at the rear. To examine the situation to the house to the west, to the east, that again is a sidewall to sidewall situation. If we could bring up my supporting material and how that relates to the impact to the adjacent dwelling on Rutherglen, I included a couple of photos of really what that situation looks like. The existing side yard setback of the dwelling on Rutherglen is 0.6 meters. Taking our additional 1.87 meters that we've proposed, there is now a 2.47 meter separation from the side wall of the dwelling on Rutherglen to essentially the rear wall of our proposed garden suite, but again, essentially creating a sidewall to sidewall separation rather than that typical garden suite being a rear yard and a rear yard that are touching. Again, there are no windows along that side of the Rutherglen dwelling that exists there today. Again, reducing any type of impact or loss of privacy, overlook or shadowing that might occur into that dwelling to the north. I'd also like to just briefly touch on the zoning. This has an RM zoning. That RM zoning envisions intensity. It predates even the multiplex bylaw of allowing 2, 3, and 4 units within that RM zoning itself. So even predating the multiplex, this is a portion of Leaside that has a mix of semi-detached dwellings. As we go to the north on Randolph, we actually have a mid-rise, 2 mid-rise buildings up as we get towards McRae. Speaking to the idea and how we cited the house, the dwelling to the north on the side yard setback is actually a slight improvement of what exists on the property today. So we have moved the dwelling a little bit further away from Rutherglen. The variance for the side yard stair access, again, is an improvement, as the side yard stairs today actually sit on the city boulevard on Rutherglen. We are proposing them, again, within the property. We are expanding the setback to the south, a little bit closer to the adjacent house to the south. But again, that dwelling today has a 0.57 meter side yard setback today. Again, if we look at the setbacks that exist even on the property, and we know the dwelling to the south, and we know the dwelling on Rutherglen has a 0.6 meter setback, this really is kind of in keeping with what sits there today. Okay, so we're not introducing a setback that doesn't exist already on the property today. Lastly, 2 other things to touch on. We are below the coverage of 35%. We are at 33.33%. Again, when we look at the increase in building length and the reduction in the side yard, that again is the indication of the increase in building length and the ability of that increase in lot depth. That increase in lot depth, it really is an indication of the property being able to accommodate the increase in the building depth we are proposing. Lastly, the front main wall height is only a request for the front. There's no other height request. We are actually 1.5 meters below the total height requirement of the zoning bylaw at 10 meters, with us being at 8.5 meters.
Thank you very much. We're just at 5 there, but I believe we may have some questions.
I think we will.
Okay, and you will have a chance to rebut. Okay. Any questions at this time? Okay, let's move on. We've got a number of speakers with us today.
Mr. Chair, we have some in the chambers.
Okay, great. We've Manny here from 46 McCullum Drive.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can I confirm that is your?
Oh, I
agent as
see.
well?
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. I see that.
Manny? He's the agent. Okay.
Okay, so we won't be presenting today. I see that. Yeah.
If there's anyone else in the chambers who wishes to speak, they should approach the mic at this point.
If you just state your name and address for us as well.
Hi, my name is Anna Go, 1 Rutherglen Road.
Welcome.
I would like to respectfully request for a slight extension because both of us applied to speak and were told we could share the time, and so we kind of prepared the presentation. We have a lot of points to make, and we prepared a 10-minute presentation. I can try and best to cut down as much as I can, but respectfully, if you don't mind, can I get a few minutes extension? I may go slightly above the 5
I can only offer 5. Please try your best. If we do have questions, it may provide an opportunity for you to elaborate, but I would try to stick within the 5-minute allotment just for procedural fairness.
Okay. And my presentation, the kind gentleman or lady who's helping might need to kind of instinctively roll it as I go because I won't have time to.
And if just remind you, please speak into the mic so our members can hear you.
Can you hear me? All right. Can we pull up the presentation?
Let us know when you.
I think it's called presentation. Oh, sorry, this is not the slide. Was it yesterday morning? Jenny, oh. Okay. Right, okay, so then we don't have visual. I'll just kind of read everything out then.
Please do. Just to let you know, we've reviewed the file extensively. We're very familiar with the application. So if there's any questions that where additional, if any questions come up through your presentation, we will certainly ask.
Okay, sure. All right, ready to start?
Please, yes, anytime.
Okay, so we strongly oppose the excessive variance because the owner wants to build 2 buildings that exceed size and height limitations and squeeze it all in a lot that is too small to fit all. And first of all, the application has not been properly vetted. This means many issues, especially the public safety risk, has not been reviewed. And the applicant did not provide any valid reason for the variance requests. In other words, the applicant could have built a big, beautiful house without any variance approval at all. It's therefore reasonable to believe the intentions behind the variance request is to maximize the build, not out of necessity. Therefore, this application should be rejected. Some of the critical non-compliances have been identified as follows. Public safety risks, traffic pedestrian hazards. The garage is located directly next to a busy crosswalk. This is dangerous, especially to the school children and parents walking through the school, from school, which is down the road. Vehicles and pedestrians coming from Randolph Road are not able to see vehicles reversing out from the proposed garage, and the drivers reversing from the garage cannot see them as well. This is in violation of safety-related laws, including various sightline obstructions. Fire hazard. Building code states that building wall less than 1 meter from the border is a fire hazard. The garden suite has deficient setbacks in all directions. According to the fire expert, fire safety requirements cannot be overridden by minor variances. Another serious issue is there's no fire hydrant on Rutherglen Road. The closest one is 80 meters away. The garden suite must be located within 45 meters of a fire hydrant. In addition, the building is made of stucco, which is unsightly, and it's also not as safe as bricks. And that's why the applicant should follow the Leaside Guide and use materials like bricks and stones. The proposed garden suite is a motel and therefore requires commercial zoning. The definition of a motel is it's a roadside hotel with parking directly outside. Now, this garden suite is unique as it has the option to operate as a standalone motel. It fits perfectly the definition because it has street parking. It's available directly outside, which is available directly outside with its own entrance, and it's directly accessible from the street without going through the main dwelling. Garden suites are supposed to be in an enclosed backyard, not accessible directly from the street. And a garden suite that is a motel in every sense will require commercial zoning. The garden suite is visible next to the street, unlawfully blocking street view of the adjacent neighbor by more than 100% of both height and as well as street view angle. There's no law to support putting a 2-story dwelling next to the front yard of the adjacent neighbor. The garden suite will also destroy all trees and an award-winning garden, as well as causing spike in traffic and parking congestion. Furthermore, it's too small. The lot is too small to accommodate the garden suite. And these are the reasons why the garden suite must be rejected. Number 3, deficient tree protection zone. There's a spruce tree in my garden, which requires 4.2 meters, not 3 meters. That's a deficiency, which is noted in the arborist report. The insufficient protection will result in the roots being chopped off, 40% of the roots, and the tree may not survive. This is in violation of the street tree bylaw. The proposed build is against planning zoning principles. 1 Rutherglen Road is an unusual key lot with no neighbors on the same street. Therefore, 1 Rutherglen is a de facto standard for the north side of the street. According to planning zoning principles, all houses on the same street should have a similar front wall line, so the garden suite must follow the front wall line of 1 Rutherglen. It's causing adverse effects, including loss of street view, sunlight, green, privacy, and increased density. This is why it should be disallowed. And the garden suite has the variances requested for these garden suites, particularly the garden suite's rear yard side back, especially the 0.96, and now it's 1.87, but it's still not enough. Number 5, proposed build fails all 4 tests of the Planning Act. We have 21 letters of objection, including Councillor Jay Robinson and the Leaside residents, plus 25 signatures of opposition. We are all strongly opposed to this project, particularly the garden suite, because the number of variances is excessive. The magnitude of the variance related is massive. This is the first garden suite for a corner lot in Leaside, and if approved, this will be precedent-setting with extremely negative impact to the neighborhood. The garden suite is conspicuously too tall, too large, too detrimental, and out of character for the Leaside neighborhood. The encroachment of setbacks and destruction of trees are not desirable. This project is contravening the general intent and purpose of the city's zoning bylaw and also the city's official plan. According to the Planning Act, each variance must satisfy each of the 4 tests, and this proposal fails. As such, we would like to request the committee to respectfully deny this application and advise the applicant to go back to the drawing board in interest of the neighborhood and society as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you. That's her 5. Appreciate it. You did it.
Mr. Chair and member of the committee, I have just one point.
Okay,
one
can I,
very important point.
Before we get to that, can I get your name, please?
Okay. My name is Eddie Tan. I'm also from One Rudder Glen.
Yeah,
But I have one point. Is a very serious issue.
I'm going to get you on a very short leash. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to make your point.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you for that. Okay. What is not known is I just discovered there is a power line pole right in the rear yard, and this is a safety risk both for electrocution as well as fire. And according to a Hydro one, all buildings should be at least 4.8 meters away because of this. But I suppose they have some easement agreement or whatever, and that's why the garage is where it is today. It is like 12 feet away. I guess it's because of this power line pole that exists in the backyard, and it is a safety concern that has not been taken into account.
Okay.
And I hope the committee will consider that. And
thank you very much.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
duly
you very
noted.
much.
Thank you.
Can I speak still? No.
No, you can't. I'm
you.
cutting you there. All right, we have another speaker. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name's Vasilis Economopoulos. I live at 4 Rutherglen Road, and the reason why I'm here today is to oppose the changes that they've recommended for the, in particular for the garden suite. I don't think what they're asking for meets the intent of the bylaw, and it isn't, as you can tell, it isn't desirable by the neighborhood. It does front onto Rutherglen Road, so it leads me to suggest that it's an actual dwelling. So, for instance, if you look at properties throughout the city, 383 Shooter Street, if you remove the top floor, it's about the same size. That's a full-blown residence. And what I'm proposing here, what I'm requesting is that we oppose the building changes and the architecture the agent has presented here in favor of something like I'm all for them building a much bigger house, but one house if that's something that is an option. But the 2 split houses, it seems to me that that's a full-blown residence. And within Leaside community itself, one of the things that you notice, there are a number of apartment buildings and condos that are throughout the area, and many of them have space available. So it's not like we're in dire need of densifying that particular road. So that's what I have at the moment, folks. I don't know if there's any questions that you have for me. I do live right across the street from the proposed garden suite, and I do think it would create more of a problem than a benefit to the city and the residents that live around there. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, and we can see just by approximation, you directly face the garden suite. That's correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Sorry, just want to confirm, you are opposing the garden suite, but in terms of the dwelling itself, the variances, you are fine with it?
He's made some changes that I would. Initially, I was coming in to oppose all the variances because I don't think they're material. But since they've made some changes, I would like to review them first before I make a decision. But I'm definitely in opposition to the garden suite.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi there. I'm Doug Vanderby. I live at 6 Rutherglen. Sorry. I have a question that I don't know who I direct to, but just to confirm, the entrance to the garden suite is off of Rutherglen. Is that correct?
I'm gonna let the agent answer that question when he's gonna come back to rebuttal.
I'm sorry?
I'm gonna let the agent answer
Yes,
that question.
yes, okay,
I
that's
can
fine.
see he's
Yep.
taking some notes now.
Yeah. So is the...
When he comes back up, he'll have a minute to speak.
Oh,
But
okay.
First, everybody.
Okay, so,
Everybody.
all right. So,
Yeah.
the entrance, I'm assuming, from what I've seen, is off of Rutherglen, so it's a separate dwelling. My position here is I'm a retired firefighter with the City of Toronto, 35 and a half years. I just recently retired. This area, I worked in Leaside for 5 years as a captain. It's my second run area for 20 years. And Rutherglen Road was known to my crew because we have no fire hydrants on Rutherglen. And when I'm going through reading everything here, is this a garden? I'm sorry? Oh, is this a garden suite or is this a laneway suite? Because its entrance is off of Rutherglen. And if it's a laneway suite, if they have a fire at that garden suite or whatever you want to call it on the second floor in the middle of the night, and I understand that fire trucks are supposed to go to 33 Rutherglen, the entrance, but because of this setup with Rutherglen, I can guarantee you that a fire truck is not going to go to 33 Rutherglen, the front entrance, when the dwelling 40 meters away is fully involved, the second floor. The fire truck is going to go in front of that garden house, or whatever you want to call it, and do their primary attack, everything that they do. So that is my big question, because as mentioned by my neighbor, the closest fire hydrants to the garden suite are over 45 meters away, and understand that's supposed to be a requirement. If you want, I have the addresses to where the fire hydrants are.
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
I mean, we're dealing with, we're specifically dealing with zoning variances, right? And
Right.
my understanding with respect to the hydrants, and there's certain building code requirements that are just, it's just not really before us today. Should there be things that come up, like not meeting a requirement of being in proximity to a hydrant, there are other mechanisms in which that can be addressed through. And regardless, even if they get an approval for a garden suite today, if it doesn't meet certain requirements, and that they will have to deal with those obstacles.
So
it's not something that we can deal with today
you're
specifically.
dealing with the Ontario Building Code, is that correct?
We're not dealing with the building
No,
code.
you don't.
No,
You can't. Yeah.
Not at
So-
all. Maybe that's addressed at the building code phase. When they apply for a permit, I suspect that whoever reviews that application will verify that it meets those requirements of building code. It has to go through that review, but we haven't gotten there at this point.
Okay, so can I get a verification? Is this a laneway suite or a garden suite?
I'm going to let the applicant answer.
Okay, yep, that's fine. That's it
Okay.
then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else in the room to speak to this today? Please come on down. No? Okay. All right, staff, I believe we have some residents online. All right.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, and Mr. Hanna?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Your address for us?
Wonderful. Yeah. My name's Stephen Hanna, and I am at 31 Randolph Road. So I am the neighbor directly beside the applicant.
Okay.
I don't have, yep. So I'm objecting based off of a few things. Actually, if you could just pull up the plan. I'm not going to bother reading off the sheet since you've already read it, but yeah, so I'm objecting based off a few things. The first is it's really just a question here, which is the distance between our homes is already quite short. So I'm just wondering if there's going to be an issue with the side of both of our houses really getting weathered and needing repair, but the space not being big enough to be able to fit scaffolding and so on. So I guess that affects, you know, myself and the applicant, and so I'm just curious about that. The second main objection I have really is around the length of the house. So they're asking for 19 or 18.9 meters. You can see, the reason I asked to pull this up is you can see my house is sort of angled funny. It's just the way that the properties, I guess, were set out. But what this essentially does is you can sort of see at the front of my house, there's that bay window there, and it basically looks directly, it would look directly onto the 31 or the 33 Randolph, the side of the house, as well as directly onto their deck. So my ask is, why can't we just have it be the same length, and then we wouldn't have this problem? So that's sort of the one major issue. It would really block our privacy, probably block a little bit of sun. We would see the side of the house, and more importantly, they'd be able to look into our sort of kitchen from that bay window. Now, if we can't reduce the size of the house, I'd ask, could we add a condition to put in some privacy fences or something? I don't know what's available there, but you know, just take that into consideration. And then lastly, the garden suite. Again, because of the size, because of the angle of our house, we're sort of staring directly into the garden suite. You know, the angular planes would really make a big difference here, because the whole point of having those angles is to sort of reduce the dominance, reduce the, increase the privacy, let a little more sun come through. And just because of the angle of our house and the way we're looking directly onto that, it would just be very intrusive. So those variances, although, I understand why they'd want to maximize the ceiling space there, but it sort of does make a big difference. Especially if there's going to be windows on the, I guess, west side, that would also be super problematic, because you could it would be looking directly into our house. I don't know if there are going to be windows there, but if that could be a condition, that would be also great. And then lastly, just sort of the angle of 33, it sort of drains water and goes down. The grading goes down. I'm very curious, because there's going to be a pool. I don't think there's no variances on softscaping, but I'm curious how the water is going to drain and if there's going to be any issues there. But that's sort of the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? One question for you. You mentioned angular planes. Is there any particular angular plane, because there's just two variances for angular planes before us. Is there any particular angular plane that you are concerned about?
Yeah, so my understanding is all of it's going to be just a sort of a box going up. All of the angular planes are being requested as variances. But the ones that would affect us the most are the south and the west. That way, when we're looking outside of our window, we would sort of get to see some sun, see some trees.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. We have another speaker.
And then it said, "Oh, will you go out and buy an Apple car?"
I'm sorry? Oh.
So that's it. That's it. We don't need to discuss it.
Mr. Cattell, are you with us? Can I just get your address?
No, that's more than me, I think.
Mr. Cattell, can you hear us?
Yeah.
You can hear me. Can you just state your address for us? I don't think he can hear us.
Or maybe somebody else is in the same building, right? What's the name? Mhm.
Perhaps we should move on and come back to Mr. Cattell. He's the last one. Yeah. Let's get them back.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Good afternoon,
Or
I
rather,
should say.
good afternoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Cattell, welcome back. I believe, could you just state your address for us again?
Yeah, I'm representing the Leaside Residents Association at 1601 Bayview Avenue, box 43582. And we are in strong opposition to the application. One really needs to think of this application in terms of it's a demolition and replacement of a single family home, but it's also a so-called garden suite in the backyard. And that creates kind of a different situation than anything else you've dealt with this morning on your agenda. Garden suites have only just been approved last year. There was only been, we follow this stuff, and there's been only one application for garden suite in Leaside up until this one. And that one was quite innocuous. Everything conformed with the bylaws. In comparison, this one is a bully application, both in terms of the replacement dwelling, but also, and particularly in terms of the garden suite. The number of variances is excessive. There are sorry, I picked up the wrong forms. Yes, the number of there are actually 11 rather than 10 variances for the replacement dwelling. The side yard setback there is on there's both the north side and the south side. In my book, that's 2 variances, not 1. Unfortunately, the zoning examiner called it 1, but it's actually 2. So there are 11 variances for the replacement building. And there are some minor changes that the applicant has proposed. They've kind of, removed the things that are less to do with volume, just more cosmetic, leaving the substantive variances unchanged. Then with the garden suite, this is a new concept, the whole concept of garden suite. In my opinion, my recommendation is for you is to simply not approve any variances for garden suites because they're new. We need to understand as a community what they're like, how they work, what are the issues, and to go immediately to variances only a year after bringing these things in, and they've not been applied in a real situation. Especially myself, I was involved in the discussions around garden suites. There was a lot of negotiation in terms of trying to get a design, a set of performance standards that did not impact on the community. The angular planes are there for a reason, to lessen the shadowing on adjacent properties. So we really strongly object to these fussing around and removing angular planes and setbacks and so on. The cumulative impact of the change from the current situation to the proposed situation in terms of hard surface versus soft landscaping, it's been cut by 50%. If you look at that side plan, the staff had the site plan before you, and it's dramatic, the amount of reduction in the soft landscaping. We're really covering up the surface with buildings in a very dramatic way. So just to as I said, you've got substantive variances that remain, like the exterior walls, 7.5 with a versus 7 meters. Particularly as the neighbor mentioned, the building length, 18.9 meters. That's 2 meters greater than the bylaw. The FSI is 0.68, which is 11% over the permitted, and they haven't made any changes except a slight reduction in the rear yard setback, but it's still unacceptable. So I think, and I mentioned here, what a sort of a mass uprising you've got with respect to this application. I counted 17 letters of opposition, which is about probably a new plus 25 residents signed a form letter. I don't go too much on form letters, but the 17 letters where people took the time to write something, that's really significant. And of course, the councillor, she doesn't get involved unless there's a fire going on. I think you need to take into account the community extent of community opposition to this application and refuse it today.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. No questions at this time. I believe we have gotten through all the speakers. I'm just going to confirm. Wonderful. Okay. Mr. Benkowski, I'm going to invite you back.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of quick things. I read Councillor Robinson's letter quite carefully. That doesn't read as a letter of objection to me. It's essentially just saying, please listen and take into the account the concerns of the neighborhoods. That's not an objection to me. Councillors will flat out say object to this proposal. Please deny it. That is not what the letter from Councillor Robinson says. I also would like to just review quickly the city departments. We have, again, no objection from Transportation Services, which would deal with any issues in terms of sight lines of coming off of the Rutherglen side with the garage. I would also note there is a garage that exists along the Rutherglen flankage today. So again, this is just a continuation of a feature that's already there today. In terms of fire services, it's odd that people would wonder how they're going to access fires on Rutherglen when they live on Rutherglen. So I'm assuming it would be the same as the individuals that live on Rutherglen today is how fire services would access the property. To deal with the garden suite in specifics, the garden suite in terms of the height and the size is as per the zoning bylaw. There is no request for an increase in the size of the garden suite or the height. The angular plane projection between the rear main wall of the dwelling and the fronting wall of the garden suite is as per the zoning bylaw. We are in excess because of that separation again, which goes back to the increased depth that this lot has, which is able to accommodate, in my opinion, a deeper house, which leads to a greater separation, where if we actually go into the floor plans and we go to that south elevation, we would see we are well past the actual angular plane requirement that would be there. The one angular plane requirement that would affect a neighbor, aside from the one where it's a sidewall to the sidewall, and again, that being the individual at 1 Rutherglen has an elevated first floor as it is. They actually have a full, probably about a 9-foot steps on the outside above that integral garage. So essentially, they're actually entering on what would be the second floor of the proposed garden suite. Again, the angular plane in that instance would make no difference at all. In terms of what fronts Rutherglen, again, an angular plane fronting the street with a setback that is behind the proposed dwelling, in my opinion, again, mitigates that impact itself. The one change I could propose is I could eliminate the angular plane requirement to the south to satisfy the resident at number 31 Randolph, which is to the south. He did say that was something that would make him happy. I'm happy to remove that request from the public notice, where we will provide the angular plane to the south, which would be adjacent to the neighbor, again, to the south. The other interesting point he made, which was a good point, is the sight lines of that dwelling. Again, because of the nature and the angle of that dwelling, they are always going to have a sight line that is going to look into number 33 Randolph. Again, just because that bay window being on the angle of the lot. In terms of the access to the proposed garden suite, and yes, it is a garden suite, It's very specific in the zoning bylaws that were passed, whether it's considered a garden suite or a laneway suite. You can't have a laneway, you can't have a garden suite. You can only have a laneway suite when it's accessed by a public lane. It's very clear, so this is a garden suite. In terms of privacy and overlook, the only windows that are proposed on the garden suite front Rutherglen. There are no side windows proposed to the neighbors to the east or the south. All windows face Rutherglen in terms of privacy. Again, there was also a question from 31 about the separation for access. The existing dwelling to the south has a 0.6 meter side yard setback. We're nominally above that from what we're proposing with the dwelling. I'm sure they could come up with an access agreement if they so chose, if something were to happen to either of the houses in the future, but that would be between them. There was also a question of shadowing from the garden suite. If we want to bring up the site plan or the survey, the way the site is situated, the only shadow that would be projected from this garden suite into anybody's amenity space would be along the side wall of that adjacent house on Rutherglen. There would be no other shadow cast into a rear yard of the neighbor to the south, again, being located to the south where the location of that proposed garden suite is. And I think that's pretty much my response. Yes, I think that's it, Mr. Chair.
Of course. Okay, thank you. Actually, I just a follow-up question. I did have concern myself a little with respect to the use of angular planes, but to your comment concerning the neighbor to the south, which variant specifically would that relate to?
So it's written as one variance. If we go to the public notice, it has actually written as the north and the south. We would just cross out the part of that variance that indicates the south. We would take that out. And then again, as it faces the neighbor to the south, he would have the angular plane as well as the separation that is well and compliant between the two dwellings. So I believe it is on number 4. Yes, it is on number 4. It is the last, sorry, it is where it says a part of the garden suite. It is a part of the garden suite penetrates a 45-degree angular plane towards the south lot line. We would remove that request. And then the only request for that angular plane would be on the north, which would front Rutherglen.
Okay. I also ask, is it just based on, you know, I have a little bit of concern with respect to on-look and privacy to the neighbor to the south. He mentioned some potential privacy screening. I don't...
The deck is actually away from them. That's actually, yeah, the walk out there. So...
Okay.
In terms of privacy and overlook, it just wouldn't be possible.
It's the stair, actually.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Any questions?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Do you want to clarify?
Through you, Mr. Chair, should we just clarify those variances? Because when I'm reading it, it's saying towards the, a part of the garden suite penetrates into a 45-degree angular plane projected towards the south lot line, but then at the end of it, it says the north side lot line. Could staff just clarify, does that make sense? And maybe the applicant too?
You know, I believe, okay, a part of the garden suite penetrates a 45-degree angular plane projected towards the north lot line, beginning of a height from 4 meters required from the required start to pick up point. You are right. Through you, Mr. Chair, you are absolutely right, Mr. Gatson. It's flipped. It's actually the first sentence to be removed, not the second request.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. You're correct.
Are staff okay with that?
Correct.
Towards the north lot, yeah. Which implies it's a south angular plane afforded to
From the south side lot line.
I'll be honest, when I was reviewing this, I just happened to have to read this multiple times to understand, make sure I got the angular planes
We planners
correctly.
have tried to make this as complicated as possible.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other clarification required? None? Okay. Mr. Binkowski, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
No, unfortunately not. Okay, we will move into committee at this time. Mr. Reed.
Chair, I think we could merit from some discussion as a committee. I'll start with some thoughts.
Of course, thank you. Please go ahead.
I think the main building itself is supportable. I think it's pretty sensitively designed, and there are a lot of very large houses in this neighborhood. So I don't have the issues. I don't have issues with the variances requested for that building, particularly as amended. I think it's good to see some changes coming. I understand the residents, neighboring residents' concerns about the garden suite. And I did have a significant concern, and that was related to the angular plane, which has since been removed. I think that would have had a pretty significant impact on the neighbor at 31. But with its removal, I can support this application, I think. I do think that the sidewall relationship with number 1 on Rutherford Glen is, with the increased setback from that rear lot line, I think that the negative impacts on that house, because it's basically a blank wall, I think are pretty limited. So with the removal of the angular plane from the south, angular plane variance from the south lot line, I would support this application.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, as amended.
Yeah, as amended.
I think that I can agree with you on that. Given staff have reviewed the application and made the suggested changes, the applicant has proposed changes to the variances. I think I'm okay with it as well.
I'll just provide a brief comment. I think my feelings are exactly in line with Mr. Reed. I did have a little bit of concern with respect to some of the angular planes, but I'm actually really happy to see that that adjustment be made. And I too actually feel that based on that amendment, I'm happy to support it. With respect, I would agree, just given that it's a side lot line to a rear lot condition, I don't think the angular plane's really going to do much. And given that there isn't a height variance for the garden suite, I don't really have too much concerns in terms of massing or scale. Yeah. So it seems, unless there's any other comments, we'll take that motion. We can't have comments at this time. Excuse me. We're in committee now. So we have a motion.
Yeah, I didn't phrase it as a motion, but I'm happy to bring a motion for approval of the application as amended. And maybe just, let's go over that just to make sure. So that's for the dwelling portion, that's with the removal of variances 1, 3, 5, 9, and 10. And for the garden suite portion, that's variance 2 being increased to 1.87, and then also with the removal of the portion of the angular plane as has been highlighted by staff, and with no other conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Do I have a second? Okay, thank you very much. Second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? Okay. The motion is approved. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Excuse me. We're done here. The motion is approved. The application is approved. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 12. Thank you. 52 Wedgewood Drive. Purpose of the application is a proposal to construct a new dwelling. Variances here are side yard setback for a platform, east and west side main wall height, building length, building depth, front yard setback, as well as east and west side yard setbacks. On file, I have material from the applicant, memorandum from Urban Forestry, as well as a letter of concern from 17 Tobruk Crescent, and as well as a letter of concern from the local councillor. We have the applicant with us.
Hi, yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm here. My name is Nicole Parr. I'm at 22 Blue Forest Drive, and I'm the agent representing my client at 52 Wedgewood.
Thank you. And I just, before we get any further, I just want to confirm we do have another speaker online, area resident. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the agent and ask for a brief presentation from you.
Okay, of course, thank you. So I'm here before you asking for 8 variances. So this is designed to be a multi-generational family who have chosen to live together. So father, mother, and their daughter and her family. For this reason, we've split the house into 2 halves, one side for the older generation and one for the younger. So it's a total of 2 units. And for this reason, we had to make the house longer and deeper to accommodate everything, 2 living, 2 dining, 2 kitchen, etc. I've also noted several houses in the neighborhood with lengths over 20 meters and 1.5 meter side yard setbacks. And I believe this meets the 4 tests and is keeping with the character of the neighborhood. It's noted that Councillor Changan, a neighbor, wrote in about our removal of 5 trees. And even though these trees are not bylaw protected according to our arborist, we have revised our proposal and sent this revision to the committee for review. We visited with the neighbor and wrote to Councillor Chang, who rescinded her letter, and we have opted to revise and shorten the walkout and save those trees. There's no staff letter in our file, and we believe the city do not object to our proposal. We are aware of the forestry letter included, so that would be a condition. And at this time, we humbly ask for any questions or comments and hope you can approve our proposal.
Okay, thank you very much for the brief presentation. I just want to confirm, are there any modifications to the variances?
There are no modifications to the variances. The walkout wasn't a variance, but a couple days ago, I sent in a revised site plan showing the revised walkout and how we can save those trees.
Fantastic. And let's just pull up the site plan just to make sure we're all looking at the same drawing. And just to confirm, is that drawing number A1 on the screen?
Yes, that's correct. It's the one on the screen right now.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, no questions. We have, let's call up our other speaker.
They're unmuted, Mr. Chair. I believe it's Amy.
Thank you. Amy, are you with us? Hello? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just tried to reach them and I got their voice message.
Okay. If we don't have the other speaker, we're going to have to move on.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have a letter from the people who are going to speak. So we do have their comments. I think they're pretty clear about saving the trees on the side property line. So, and perhaps when we have the applicant, she can address whether that's what she was referring to.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Cass. And I actually, I had in reviewing the material, I had also made a note of the concern that has been brought up about the trees. So let's take that back to the applicant and ask for a response. So
Yes,
I think you've already
so
mentioned as well, some of them are being saved.
Yes, so basically the neighbor, I think at 17th or something, and the counselor had reached out to us about those 5 trees, which are not bylaw protected, but we went ahead and shortened our walkout to save them. And my client personally went to Miss Amy's house to speak with her about the application. She indicated that she was happy with that. However, she would still like to be in attendance. So I don't know where she is right now, but that's okay. So we are saving those trees. There might be a slight injury to one of them due to the corner of the house, if you can see on the site plan, but the other ones will be saved. And these are all from our arborist who indicated the TPZ protection. So they will be saved.
Thank you. And I also thank you for reaching out to the neighbor in advance and trying to address some of those concerns in preparation for the hearing today. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Seeing as that there's no other questions, we will take this into committee.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have any concerns with the application. I think it's appropriate. It's minor in nature, within the intent of the zoning bylaw, and I'm happy to move a motion for approval, subject to forestry condition number 1.
I second that.
Okay.
Just one moment, please. If I might, would you be open to tying it to the revised site plan just to confirm the tree issue?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a revised motion by Ms. Casson, agreed on by Ms. Casson, second by Mr. Fazeli. All in favor? Okay, the motion passes. The application is approved.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day, guys.
You as well. Moving on to the last item of the morning, item number 13, 648 Oriel Parkway. For purpose of the application is to construct a new dwelling. We've got variances before us for a second entrance through a front main wall, building height, entrance height, platform height, and FSI. On file, I have material from the applicant. Do we have the applicant with us?
Yes, hi, Mr. Chair. Hello, members of committee. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. Just give us one moment.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Should I introduce myself? Yeah.
Okay, I see that we also have, for this item, we have another speaker. To the applicant, I'm going to ask for a brief presentation.
Do I need to introduce myself?
Please introduce yourself and please state your address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Arash Mesbah. I'm the owner and the agent of the project 648 Oriel Parkway, and the address is the same, 648 Oriel Parkway. Yes.
Okay. Thank
so
you.
I'm gonna start. This is gonna be really quick. I'm gonna start by addressing variance 234, which is essentially one variance. If you can kindly go to page 8 of my latest drawing, these three variances triggered by raising the house by 46 centimeters or 18 inches to minimize my excavation. Go to the next page, please. I think it's the next page. Go back to 3 more pages. Yeah, it's the east elevation. So on east elevation, I've shown the immediate neighbors notionally, and I think my proposal sits very sympathetic within the 2 buildings. In terms of height, what I'm asking is well below the average height of all other approval variances in the street. We have precedence of 3 stories with 10, 11, 12 meter high. Variance number 1 is triggered by my attempt to get some natural light. If you can go kindly to page 12, sheet A111, the cross section. I mean, you can see the strange slope of my site that doesn't offer any opportunity to get natural light in the basement. That's why I have that light wall in the front. and then my wife and I work from home, and then it would be a nice entrance, a secondary entrance for our clients, so that they don't go through the house. I believe all requested variances are minor and in line with the zoning bylaw general intention. I don't have any more comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, seeing as there's no questions, let's pull up our other speaker.
Hi. Sorry.
Oh, hello, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Presume you're Mr. Craig?
Hi, Stephen Craig. My wife and I live at 652 Oriel Parkway, so we are directly north and adjacent to the applicant's home. I'll start off with an apology. This is the first time I've ever been to a Committee of Adjustment meeting before, so some of my questions and comments may fall outside of your purview. If so, I don't mean any disrespect. We can deal with those accordingly. In addition to living directly north of the applicant's home, and we've been there for 38 years, as a matter of fact, we share a mutual driveway, and we also share a 50, 60-year-old frame two-car garage. So we do have we have some unique interests that might not apply to some of our neighbors. I just had a couple of questions. One, I guess, procedural. I received your notice of public hearing. It was dated April 1st, and there was a site plan attached to it. I tried to muddle my way through what the site plan said, but I think I have an understanding there. And as I understand it, there was a revision to the application, and I dug this up through your portal, submitted on March 25th, which, and again, this is not my background, but it appeared the only meaningful difference was the treatment of our shared garage. But I couldn't tell if there were any other material differences between what had originally been submitted and what was subsequently revised on March 25th. So perhaps that's a question that the applicant can address. I'm not sure. Another issue, and I'm sure this is outside of your purview, but I can't tell from the drawings whether the new residents will be encroaching in any way into our common driveway. I was out there with a tape yesterday, and it looked like we had 11.3 between our homes, and now it looks like it might be 10.3, but I might be reading the wrong number. So perhaps that's something that the applicant could address as well. In terms of the specific variance requests, variance number one, and I've sort of looked at a sketch of that, but as I understand it, they want to have a sort of 5 or 6 steps up to the front door, and then a set of steps going down at the front of the home to access the lower level. And when I looked at the plans for the lower level, it looked like that was just a gymnasium and I think a rec room. And so at some level, I was curious why it required an outside access as opposed to just going through the home. I think I heard the applicant mention something about clients. Perhaps this is a home office. I'm not sure. I don't know what the hours of business will be or whether there will be any special parking requirements for clients that might come to the house. Because Oriel Parkway is a fist fight for parking spots. It always has been. And the parking is stressed right now. So perhaps that's something that I could get some assurance from on that item. Again, I don't know what's contemplated there, but looking at the plans, it just looks like a rec room and a gym. So I had a question about the parking provision. It looks like the applicant, unlike a lot of homes in the area, won't be designing a built-in garage at the front of the home. I am assuming that he plans to park their vehicles in his backyard. Because again, the parking on Oriel Parkway is, it can be very expensive if you get a yellow ticket on your windshield. So I don't know how that will be addressed. I don't know whether there's a limit to the number of cars one can park in their backyard. And again, I know that this won't be within your purview, but we share a mutual driveway and we access our garage with it. And presumably during construction period, it may be difficult for that mutual drive to be open at all times. I just wonder, and again, this is probably not within your purview, so I apologize. Is there someone in the city I can talk to about our rights in terms of maintaining access to a mutual drive during, I assume, a 12 to 15 month construction period?
Of course. So all of that would be handled through the building department
Okay.
after your neighbor. If they were approved and if they applied and were issued a permit, that's something that could be addressed through the building inspector.
Okay.
We
okay.
will.
I guess I'll circle back to my third point about variance number 1.
Okay.
I mean, I've lived on the street for 38 years. I don't think there is a home on the street that has that kind of access. In other words, a set of steps going down at the front of the home. Typically, it's at the back or perhaps at the side. And in terms of consistency, it just is not consistent with other homes on the street. I wonder if there is the ability to sort of revisit that and perhaps access the lower level from perhaps the back of the house.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take all of this, all the questions, a lot of good questions that you put forward, and we're gonna ask the applicant to address that.
Okay, thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming down. All right, so if there's no other speakers, let's bring the applicant back.
Yes, I'm right here.
Thanks.
So the first point was the revision on the parking garage. That was just me having difficulty with my budget, and then going back to the drawing board, and then realized that I have to basically maintain my neighbor's portion of the garage. The second point was the encroachment into the driveway. I'm not encroaching to that easement. That easement asks for 1.24 meter clearance, and then I'm complying to that. Variance number 1, yes, because of the strange nature of the property, the land, the grade, it's negative. It's sloping down toward the street, so it's gonna be really hard to have like that set of stairs and then the light wall in the backyard basically. And then I'm gonna point out that front light wall, it's not visible from the street. And then I'm doing all of this. I'm going through a huge challenge just to save the tree in the front. So if you look at other buildings in the street, they remove their trees, they dug out the front, and they actually have an integrated parking garage in the front. So I'm keeping that. I'm keeping a nice, like I'm thinking I'm keeping a nice landscape in the front, but at the same time I'm trying to get some light into the basement. About the parking, yes, I removed my parking, and transportation has no objection about that, and I'm not planning to park my car in the backyard. I'm thinking to go carless. This area is very close to public transportation, and then I'm planning to use public transportation to go to work for most of the time. The Yeah, I guess the last point is the mutual driveway. That again, as you mentioned, it's not a zoning requirement. I guess we would be dealt with at the building code department review, like in terms of like a construction and access to the use of that shared driveway. I guess I covered all the points.
Okay, so just to address one of the questions brought up by your neighbor with respect to the right-of-way. So you are obviously maintaining the right-of-way in its entirety.
Yes.
Okay.
That's true.
Now, just to address the garage at the rear, it looks like to be one building that's sort of split in the middle. So is it your intent to tear half the building down and then reconstruct the sidewall adjacent to the neighbor?
So I have two options, basically three scenarios that I'm exploring right now, and then my neighbor Steve knows about them. So one was to replace, basically tear down the whole thing and then replace his garage, and then the other one is to basically maintain his portion of the garage. Yeah, by cutting my half of the garage and then come up with some sort of support system on my side of property.
Okay. You realize you may have put
Does
yourself
that make
into a
sense?
bit of a difficult situation with respect to this garage and how to go about it, because it does appear to be very much a common building that's kind of straddles the property line and shared between both sides. So that may take its own kind of set of, I guess, planning with the neighbor. Any questions at this
That's
time?
okay. No, I think I've been in contact. I've been doing my best to address his concerns about the garage for the past 6 weeks, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
Can I ask a question or no?
No, unfortunately not. If my colleagues have any additional questions, I will allow them to ask either. No other questions? Realize it does present a bit of a unique circumstance, given that there is a shared building between the two properties. I don't, if there's any comment with respect to that. I will just perhaps, given that my colleagues are reviewing their notes right now, I will I had a small comment with respect to the secondary entrance at the front. I think, with respect to, I think really the intent of that is to sort of mitigate the impact, the visual appearance from the street, that these are buildings that really should have one entrance. So the question really is whether or not that secondary entrance is mitigated in terms of sightlines. I did have a bit of concern just with respect to the adjacency to another street which faces it directly. So the property actually is quite visible, not only from the subject street that it affronts, but from the street that the other street that it intersects, which is Orchard View Boulevard.
There is only one street, if I may add. So it's facing only one street. Can you, if I may ask you, can you pull up the drawings again, the front elevation, east elevation? Yes, that one. Can you zoom in, please? Yeah.
Very good. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so yeah, you see the steps going up to the front door, the main door, and then to the left, you basically see guardrail, just guardrail, and then a little bit of the opening.
Yeah, I recognize the guardrail's not represented on the elevation drawing, but in fact, there probably will be requirements of
There
some
would
form
be
of
guardrail, yes,
guard
yes,
across the front.
Yes. And then there is going to be a big tree in front of it, so you don't actually see any of it.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if you guys have looked at the tree. That tree is like 1 meter in diameter.
Okay. Any other questions? Because I'd like to take us into committee now if there aren't. Mr. Reed.
Just one, Chair, thanks. If the applicant could talk a little bit more about the garage, and I understand there's solutions that are being explored now, but I think it would be nice, from my perspective, to understand that the neighbor's going to be made whole, or this will be taken care of. And so if he can give some assurance to that, to the committee, please.
Of course, yeah. I think I've been doing that so far. Like the past 6 weeks, I've been going back and forth with my 3 engineers, and I got a stamp drawing submitted to him to get his own engineer to review it, and obviously this is going to go through the building department, so it's going to get reviewed by the examiner. Yeah, and I have no intention to by removing my portion of the garage, jeopardize the integrity of his garage.
Great, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, we're moving into committee, so I'm going to thank the agent as well as the neighbor. But let's move into committee now for discussion amongst ourselves. Mr. Reed.
Thanks, Chair. I can start with a couple comments. I think this is a really good application. I think it's quite restrained in terms of the built form that it's proposing. I think it's not a huge expansion over what's there. And in regard to the front staircase, I hear the applicant's point about that the screening is provided, and also these lots are a bit elevated from the street. So I think that goes to breaking up that kind of visual impact of that. So I don't have big concerns related to that. And I'm glad to hear that the right-of-way is being protected and that the garage situation will be remedied. So I support the application. And if my colleagues have no further comments, I'm happy to move a motion to that effect. I moved it. Yes. Okay. I move approval of the application without condition.
Okay. Second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay. I will dissent on this one. So we got four in favor. The motion carries. The application is approved. Okay. That concludes our morning session. Thank you, everybody. And we will be back in 1 hour. Let's reconvene. You guys want to maybe, what do we say, 2:45? Almost an hour? Yeah? I'm looking to staff. I want to make sure. Is there 2:45 fine? We got a request for 2:30, but I don't want to cut anybody short. Okay, 2:45 it is. All right, thank you, everybody.